of the Fairfield Town Planning and Zoning Commission. I call this meeting to order. Tonight we have 6 commissioners present, meeting our required quorum of 4 commissioners. Our chairman and vice chairman, however, are both absent this evening. Therefore, we will elect a chairman pro tem. For this position, I'm honored to nominate Commissioner Tom Noonan. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Corcoran. Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, I close the nominations and ask for a vote. All in favor of electing Commissioner Noonan as Chairman Pro Tem, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Commissioner Noonan, you are elected unanimously.
Thank you. So we'll move on to bills and communications minutes from the last meeting, July 27th, 2021. May I have a vote on that?
Move to
Or excuse me, a motion on that?
Move to approve.
Moved to approve by Commissioner Francis and seconded by Commissioner Braun. Anything to add? Commissioner Francis, anything on your end? Okay. It looked like a no to me. Commissioner Braun, anything from you on your end? I see a no, shake of the head no. I have nothing as well. Any other commissioners have anything? Okay. All in favor to approve the minutes, please say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Aye. I see 6 hands, 6 out of our 6, so it's approved unanimously. And Mr. Wendt, as I just did that, as Commissioner Francis said, we're missing some people. The 2 alternates that we have are sitting in for our regular members.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Both Commissioners Elliott and DiGiacomo are seated as full members this evening. So we have six voting members.
Thank you, and I saw them raise their hands to approve it. So the minutes from July 27th are adopted unanimously. Moving on to 452 Brookside Drive, request of Chabad of Fairfield for a 50% release of a $81,450 bond pertaining to special exception improvements. Mr. Wendt.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this site, some of you may know, is the old Elks Club on Brookside Drive. It's been taken over by Chabad of Fairfield. They are undergoing, at the moment, construction of the rabbi's dwelling. They have occupied the property. They've done some site improvements and recently completed a long stretch of concrete sidewalk along the frontage of this property, if you've been by there. There is a report in your materials that I sent out with the agenda from the engineering department recommending that a 50% release of the bond, and we concur with that recommendation and recommend its 50% release.
Thank you, Mr. Wendt. May I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved to approve by Commissioner Francis, seconded by Commissioner Corcoran. Anything else besides Mr. Wendt's summary? I saw the email from Ms. Pooley. Hearing none, all in favor, either raise your hand or please say aye. I think I saw 6 hands. Any opposed? Not hearing not hearing voices or seeing hands. It's approved unanimously. All right, on to old business. 323 Old Dam Road, special exception and coastal site plan application of Esplanade LLC pertaining to the construction of a single-family dwelling. Mr. Wendt? I think you're on mute, Mr. Wendt.
Sorry.
Thank you. It's okay.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, this subject site has a gross area of 1.34 acres, primarily within the floodplain zone and partially within the beach district. The proposed dwelling is located within the floodplain district portion of the site and therefore subject to a special exception application. In October of 2011, this property was subject of a zoning board of appeals application to build a single-family dwelling. There were 4 variances granted in that application. One was to increase lot coverage from a maximum of 15% to a proposed 24.5%. The second was to increase total floor area from a permitted 30% to 45%. A reduction in street line setback from the required 30 feet to 16 feet, and a reduction of the required minimum first floor area from 800 square feet to 696 square feet. Those calculations for the variance in 2011 were based on a net lot area of 3,250 square feet. Coastal site plan was also included in that variance application. As was discussed at the hearing, the Zoning Board of Appeals approval was appealed by neighbors and upheld by the Superior Court. This is a legally existing non-conforming lot with regard to minimum lot size and required lot square, and we agree with the applicant's position on this matter. This lot became non-conforming by a combination of both zone change and regulation amendments over time regarding the definition of lot area. The proposed improvements on the lot are subject to current standards, but the lot area and shape are protected nonconformities. It is for this reason that the 2011 Zoning Board of Appeals application did not include lot area and square variances. And the court also found this to be the changing of the regulations over time to justify hardship for the granting of those variances. The current survey as part of this application indicates a net lot area of 9,153 square feet, with the difference from the previous 2011 calculation being the result of changes in the elevation from the one-year tidal flood line due to datum used by FEMA. Attorney Green, on behalf of neighbors, argues that the net lot area should be exclusive of the beach district portion of the site, and we agree with that. The beach district portion of the site, net of areas that are already excluded, is approximately 2,830 feet, yielding a net lot area of approximately 6,323 square feet, which is almost twice the net lot area that was considered by the ZBA application. The resulting lot coverage and floor area calculations using that net of approximately 6,323 would still comply with the R2 standards at approximately 12% and 25% respectively. So what was discussed at the hearing was the variances by the Zoning Board of Appeals for lot coverage and floor area are kind of moot because the net lot area has increased. And even if we net out the beach district portion of the site, they are still in compliance. Similarly, there was an argument about the minimum lot square is required as 80 feet using the R2 zone standards, does not fit on this site pursuant to our current definition of lot area and shape. And we also agree with that. The largest square that can fit within the coastal jurisdiction line is approximately 65 feet. However, the matter of total lot area and square, as I mentioned earlier, is an existing non-conforming condition due to the regulation changes, and therefore it's a protected non-conformity. So we agree with the argument that the area of the beach district should be netted out and the lot square is less than 80 feet, but that doesn't impact the variances that were granted because back in 2011, the lot size was even smaller at 3,250 square feet, and the court found that to be a protected non-conformity. So it is the staff position that the ZBA approval addresses the remaining design elements of the regulations. The proposed dwelling will comply with the FEMA elevation standards, and the applicant has addressed relevant coastal management criteria. The relevant standard conditions for special exception are as follows. Number one is the location, type, character, and size and use of the buildings in harmony with and conform to the appropriate orderly development of the town and neighborhood. Number two is the nature and location of the use of buildings or structures such that there will be adequate access for fire protection. Three, are the streets serving the proposed use adequate to carry prospective traffic? And four, is the proposed use in compliance with the plan of conservation and development? That is all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. White. May I have a motion on this matter? Commissioner Corcoran?
I move to approve.
May I have a second? Commissioner Elliott, seconds. Thank you. Commissioner Corcoran?
I agree with staff. I think their analysis covers both attorneys' arguments. And it was confusing to me when they made the arguments about what was going on, but now this approach brings the two arguments together, and I think it looks like it's an approved law.
Thank you, Commissioner Corcoran. Commissioner Elliott?
No, same thing. I agree. I appreciate staff's, review and kind of puts it all in perspective, and seems like it's something we need to approve.
Thank you. Yeah. Commissioner Corcoran?
Also, with regard to our criteria, I think that we're not opposed to the plan of conservation development. There's adequate adequate roadways to this area for the number of houses. Or the other two criteria?
Harmony with the area, fire protection.
Right. We don't have any evidence that those aren't satisfied.
Commissioner Francis? I think you're on mute.
I would further add that the proposed home meets all our regulations, the FEMA regulations. So
Thank you.
Merits approval.
Yeah, I agree. I think the existing non-conforming lot is allowed to be a building lot, and then with the ZBA, that with all their decisions meets the objective criteria. And as Commissioner Corcoran went through the 4 elements that this application meets, it's a residence, it'll be used as a residence. The court itself, in its decision, found that it's consistent with the plan of conservation. So with respect to fire and streets, with it being a residence proposed, it meets those criteria. So I agree, and I would support approving this motion. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Braun? You're on mute, Commissioner Braun.
When we reviewed it last time, we didn't really get accurate data until the very tail end of the discussion, because there was apparently a typo on the legend that has all the details about setbacks and square footage and things like that. It does not appear to have the minimum square that's required, and that was not sought as a variance. So that was omitted from the approval of the ZBA. They don't have the 80 foot, even though on their data they listed that it was 138 square, but then they admitted when I asked them the question that that's a typo. I don't know if they actually said it was 65 feet, but it's clearly not 80 feet. So I think it defies the purpose of having the minimum square, so I can't support this application.
Thank you. I think as the applicant's attorney pointed out, that even if this is an existing non-conforming lot with minimum lot coverage, that the fact that it's pre-existing and non-conforming does not negate the ability to build because of those reasons. So again, I think that's why I would again support the application. Anything else from any commissioner? Not hearing anything, we'll move to the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
I see 5. All opposed. Commissioner Braun opposing. So it's a 5-1 vote carries. Moving on to 2780 Reading Road, re-subdivision application of John Russell for 2 lots in a AAA zone. Mr.
Okay,
Wentworth.
Mr. Chair, Jim Went for the record. This site is a 5.09 acre property in the AAA zone. The existing home on the property is to remain in a new lot created along the Reading Road frontage. An inland wetland permit was approved for this property in January of this year. Back on June 8th, this commission reviewed a preliminary open space plan with respect to this subdivision and recommended a fee in lieu of open space be provided due to the small size of any potential open space and its lack of connectivity to any adjacent open space. The current pre-subdivision land value is $527,500. Therefore, a 10% open space fee would be $52,750. So if you are inclined to make a finding that this subdivision meets all of the standards of the AAA zone lot, which in our opinion it does, it would be subject to a 10% open space fee in the amount of $52,750. That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Went. May I have a motion on this? Commissioner Braun? Move to approve or deny?
Move to approve.
Thank you. Second by Commissioner Corcoran. Commissioner Braun?
Thank you very much, Jim, for providing the wetlands permit. I have a question because I don't remember last time. Did we vote on accepting the open space fee or the open space? I think we voted on that, didn't we already?
You did. Your recommendation was to take a fee in lieu of the open space.
Okay. Yeah, I still support that. I think it makes sense, especially after reviewing the wetlands decision, which is very lengthy and very thought out. It's 14 pages long. So I approve this. I support this application. I think it's a good use of the property.
Thank you. Commissioner Corcoran?
I don't have anything to add.
Any other commissioners? I would support this application as well. We're sitting in our administrative capacity. It meets the criteria for AAA and is in line with our previous recommendation. Let's go to a vote. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Seeing 6 out of 6, the motion is approved unanimously. Next up, we have 5545 Park Avenue, zoning compliance application of Primrose Development LLC for a 120-unit residential development pursuant to Section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. Before I go to Mr. Wendt, considering our numbers being 6 out of the 9 general or 10 general, well, our diminished numbers, and frankly, my desire, I think, to have a little extra time on this, I would be curious and would support a motion to table. I figure we'd throw that out there now as opposed to Mr. Wendt going through his narrative to see if anybody else had the same inkling as I did that tabling might be appropriate considering our numbers and that we have at least one extra meeting before this needs to be voted on. Commissioner Corcoran?
Yeah, I so move that we table this based on what you just said.
Commissioner Corcoran moves to table. Do I have a second? Commissioner Francis, thank you. Anything to add, Commissioner Corcoran or Francis?
No.
No, not really. It would be better to have more of our members participate.
Yeah, I agree. Between our numbers and, as I said, I would like a little more, an extra 2 weeks to review the record and get my thoughts in order. So hopefully Mr. Went doesn't mind me stepping on his toes to kind of jump the gun and move it along, so to speak. But that would be my preference, is to table for now. Any other commissioners? If not, we'll put it to the vote. All in favor of tabling the matter, please say aye or raise your hand. I see 6 hands out of 6 commissioners, so motion to table is granted unanimously. Okay. That brings us to our public hearing. So I'll call first, 100 Napus Road, request of Anila Volka for 100% release of the $9,022.50 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in the R3 zone. And I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I see her box, but I do not hear from, again, I believe Ms. Volka.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you see me
Thank
now?
you. Well, I can hear you. I don't see your video, but that's not needed. But I certainly hear you, and either feel free to put the video on or feel free to go forward.
Hi,
There
Mom.
we go. I see. Hi, good evening.
Hi, how are you? We filed for permit in 2018, and we were told to put bond on our bond money for building this new construction house. Now everything is completed. We have a CO certificate this few months ago, so we're asking now the town to release the bond money to us.
Thank you. So, having heard from the applicants, is there anybody from the public that wishes to be heard on this matter? I'll ask just because, just to get into the rhythm, so to speak. Did anybody sign up to be heard on the matter?
I don't see anybody in the chat, and nobody messaged me privately to request to speak.
Yeah, as expected, I think. So last call, anybody wish to be heard on this matter from the public? Hearing none, I'll close the public comments. And you're all set for this evening, unless you have anything else to add.
No.
Okay. So I'll close the public hearing on this matter. Thank you for your time. We'll have the decision the next meeting.
Okay, I just wanted to specify on a public hearing notice I received, it's for 100 Nepas Road. Actually, this is for 70 Nepas Road. That's our address for new house.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mr.
It's just so you know, Mr. Chairman, it's listed under 100 because that was the original address of the property for the subdivision. The new house that was constructed was assigned the address of 70, but 100 was the mothership address, if you will. So that's why it's the same address from the original subdivision.
Okay.
Okay, so it's noted for the record that this bond is for the property, at least under the application, 100 Nepis Ave, but the new address will be 70 Nepis Ave.
Yeah, right.
Got it.
All set.
Okay.
All set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Moving on to the next item for public hearing, 750 Post Road, 42 Elliott Street, special permit and coastal site plan application of 750 Post Road Associates LLC pertaining to the construction of a new restaurant in the Design Commercial District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Nuff. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street in Milford, Connecticut, and I'm here tonight on behalf of 750 Post Road Associates, LLC. 750 Post Road is the applicant and the owner of course, 750 Post Road and 42 Elliott Street. Those two parcels are in the Design Commercial District. and comprise approximately 1.9 acres. Obviously, this is the location of the former Joe's American restaurant and Colonial Barbershop, and the site has been vacant for the past several years. The applications that are before you are the following: a special permit and site plan for a drive-through restaurant pursuant to section 12.4.16 of your regulations, a special permit application for filling and grading pursuant to section 24.4.1, and a coastal site plan application. To date, we have received a certificate of wetlands conformance regarding a small area of offsite wetlands, and we've also received your staff comments on the coastal site plan application, in which no concerns are raised, and of course there are no nearby coastal resources, of course. As I noted, drive-through restaurants are permitted in the design commercial district, subject to special permit approval. In this case, our proposed restaurant tenant is a 5,172 square foot Chick-fil-A. So while we all know that zoning regulates the use and not the user, and while we meet or exceed every standard in your regulations, we have nevertheless made every possible, and more importantly, every necessary accommodation to ensure that there will be no negative impacts from Chick-fil-A or any other restaurant use at this property. So what do I mean by that? First, the size of the site itself is far larger than any other Chick-fil-A in the States, and probably any other fast food drive-through restaurants. The 1.9 acre parcel is approximately twice as large as some other Chick-fil-A's, and we're going to discuss that in detail a little bit later. Under our regulations, we could easily accommodate another pad site on our property for another tenant, such as Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. But it was important to my clients and to Chick-fil-A to have a site with sufficient size that can easily absorb all the customer traffic with no backups on the adjacent roadway network. Second, we can accommodate 36 cars in our drive-through queue where only 150 feet, or approximately 7 to 8 cars, is required by the regulations, and we have an ability to extend that if necessary. Third, we have a surplus of 23 parking spaces, which offers us great flexibility in terms of customer employee parking and facilitating easy access throughout the site. Fourth, our traffic analysis shows that with specific improvements, we can maintain the same level of service on the roadway network as compared to simply re-tenanting the Joe's American building. And last, not only is Chick-fil-A known for its extremely high quality food and unrivaled customer service, but it has also set the bar for operational facility, not just for restaurants and retailers, but across the span of enterprises. That means a highly efficient drive-through process with multiple team members taking orders and delivering food, but also means offering online ordering and separate pickup spaces, along with the opportunity to dine in. As you'll see, these provisions, both individually and collectively, will ensure the safe and efficient operation of the restaurants, this site, and this area of Fairfield, whether it's grand opening weekend or a busy Saturday 5 years from now. We certainly understand that some members of the public will point to traffic issues or concerns generated at other Chick-fil-A's or other drive-thrus and claim that the same will happen at this location. As you'll see, however, when we later compare this site to other drive-through uses on the basis of acreage, queuing capacity, parking, and the opportunity for signal timing improvements, those comparisons, whether to Norwalk or anywhere else, are wholly irrelevant. And that's one of the reasons why our commercial neighbors of Bob's Plaza and the owner of the Marshalls and CVS Center, which directly abuts our parcel, have written letters of support. And that raises the last issue I want to discuss in my introduction, which is economic development. This restaurant represents a $2 million investment into the town of Fairfield, and one that will offer between 125 and 150 jobs. It will bring back to life a site that has sat dormant for years and otherwise might continue given the challenges facing restaurants, bricks and mortar retail, and other commercial uses. And as you'll hear in a moment, Chick-fil-A and its local owner-operator will become a welcome and engaged corporate citizen of the town. So with me this evening to present the application are Clint Matson, who's a principal development lead for Chick-fil-A, Matt Bruton, who's a professional engineer with BL Companies, and Rob Baltermitis, who's a professional engineer who will be discussing traffic. We're going to do a little bit of a switch. We're going to have Clint speak generally about Chick-fil-A. Then Matt Bruton will take you through the site plan and the landscape plan. And then we're going to go back to Clint for him to discuss the elevations and operations, and then we'll get into the traffic. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Clint Matson.
You're on mute. Say again. I don't hear him unless you do, Attorney Nuff.
Clint, can you hear us? I apologize. Let me check.
That's okay. I mean, to be fair, for whatever reason on my end, when I log in, I can hear people but can't speak, and I have to call in with my phone. If that helps and means anything.
Can y'all hear me now?
There you go.
Yes.
Thanks, Clint.
John, can you hear me? I apologize.
Yes, we can hear you now, Clint. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for letting us present tonight. Like John said, my name is Clint Matson with Chick-fil-A. And we are very excited to be here tonight and to be part of the community, have the opportunity to be part of the community to serve great food and, like John said, incredible customer service. Chick-fil-A has been in business for over 75 years. We started in Atlanta, Georgia, and have grown across the country and international. We have over 2,500 restaurants around the country in U.S. and Canada, and hopefully soon open more in Puerto Rico this year. This location is part of our growth plan in Connecticut. We have 10 stores currently, with one being built currently in Manchester. We'll be opening this fall, and then many more planned in the future. We picked this site we really want to be part of the Fairfield community. We want to take pressure off some of our existing restaurants. As John mentioned, Norwalk is close to this one and needs some relief. And really it's just part due to the larger lot size of this that can handle the capacity that we need. As John mentioned earlier, this will be a local owned and operated store. Our operators that run the store are selected because they've either lived in the community or want to go back to their community and live to run and operate a store in their community. We will offer 125 to 150 new jobs for team members, all the way from part-time to full-time positions. We are open Monday through Friday, 6:30 to 10, closed on Sundays. Again, we are very excited to be part of the community for many years to come. Our lease is a multi-year lease here that will be part of the community for many, many years.
Great. Thank you, Clint. Our next presenter is Matt Bruton, professional engineer from BL Companies, to walk you through the site plan.
I think he's on mute as well.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Great. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with the commission. I think it'll be easier to show the presentation, so I'll do that now.
Thank you.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
It's starting to load.
Okay, I'll give you a second.
Good on my end.
Okay. All right. For the record, my name is Matthew Bruton. I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut. I'm employed by BL Companies. I'm out of their Hartford office at 100 Constitution Plaza in Hartford, Connecticut. I'll walk you through, as John said, the site plans. Feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions. If not, I'm happy to answer at the end. So just a quick summary of the existing.
One preliminary question. The slides
Sure.
that you're going through, if not in this format, everything we're going to be you're showing on the screen has already been provided in the record?
For the
Correct,
most part,
Mr. Chairman. Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, for the most part, Mr. Chairman, there are some graphics when we get to the traffic that that simply reorient or reorganize the same material in a sort of graphic format. But we will be supplying anything that we submit tonight that's not that in the format that you're going to be seeing it, tomorrow morning. So my guess is we'll be keeping the hearing open, so we'll have an opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. So the plan that you see in front of you is the site plan, similar to the site plan that was part of the application package. So just take a step back and talk about the existing conditions real quick. As mentioned by John, this is roughly a 2-acre parcel in the designated commercial zone. Existing restaurant and associated small buildings on the street. We have 3 frontages for orientation. Post Road is along the bottom of the screen where my mouse is moving now. Elliott Place to the right-hand side where my mouse is now, and then Elliott Street to the rear. In general, topography on this parcel is relatively flat, kind of varying between 11 and 7 feet, depending. 11 closer to the existing buildings and 7 around the corners. There is a small existing CLMP easement in the southeastern corner that will remain, and all the abutters and businesses are also within that DCD zone. For proposed conditions, as you see on the screen, we have a site plan here that is compliant with your zoning regulations and is requesting no variances. So I'll just walk you around some of the site features so you guys can get familiar with it. On the left-hand side here, the white block is the approximately 5,000 square foot restaurant. To the southeast corner is the main entrance with the appropriate handicap parking spaces with a crosswalk to some other handicap parking spaces. So that is the main entrance. There is a bike rack on the eastern facade of the building here. There are 2 canopies, exterior canopies, through the drive-through lane, which snakes around the northern side of the site along Elliott Street and wraps around the building back into the parking lot. So there's a canopy roughly here where my mouse is circling, and again on the western side of the building as well. Another few things to point out. There's 2 dumpster locations over in this hand corner for the business, and also an associated loading space adjacent to that area. The proposed parking required for this site and this use is 53 parking spaces. Given the proposed tenant, we have overparked this site with 76 spaces, which is 23 more than is required to accommodate their expected business demands. We are showing 2 access points into the property. One is a right-in, right-out driveway to Post Road, also Route Run, which would be permitted and designed and reviewed by the DOT. And then we also have a full access driveway to Elliott Place. Both offer access to the parking lot and to the drive-through as necessary. Let me know if that's lagging at all. Okay, so the plan you, okay, great. The plan you see here is just a bicycle and pedestrian plan. You can see the dark dashed lines that we show in several locations on the site plan. So there is obviously a portion of the existing sidewalk on Post Road that will be constructed as we modify the existing driveways and proposed driveways, and a sidewalk connection to the main entrance and the bike rack area. Obviously, pedestrian and vehicular areas, other areas of the site as well. So the site is definitely accessible to surrounding businesses and neighborhood. What I'm pulling up now, and you should see in a few seconds, is the drainage plan. So as part of this application, we are obviously providing a stormwater management system that would be compliant with the town regulations, 2002 sediment and erosion control guidelines, and the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Manual. This has been reviewed and signed off by the town engineer, and I'll walk you through some of the aspects of that now. So the goal of the stormwater management system is to provide peak flow mitigation and water quality improvements. So the peak flow mitigation is to make sure that that rainwater that does fall on this site is captured and treated and then discharged in the same direction as it does today. The goal of that is to not inundate state road, town roads, or abutters with additional rainwater they are not receiving today. The plan that we show in front of you accomplishes that goal. In addition to that, we also need to provide water quality improvements. So the quality of the water that is being discharged to the town system and to the state system needs to comply with a regulation of 80% TSS removal. TSS stands for total suspended solids. So this is the normal trash, grit, sand, salt that is common with a commercial parking lot. The devices that we have proposed are providing cleansing and treatments that will allow that regulation to be hit before it's discharged to those adjacent systems. So how we're doing that is a series of catch basins with deep sumps and hoods, hydrodynamic separators, rain gardens, an underground detention system with an isolator rail. I'll just point out a few of those features here. So obviously there's a larger system under the parking lot here, which eventually discharge and connects to the town drainage system. There's also a series of small rain gardens in the parking lot, along the western boundary, and a connection into Post Road to the state system. So in total, the system provides peak flow mitigation for the 10 and 25-year events, compliant with town regulations, and does provide that 80% TSS removal. The plan that's coming up in front of you now is the site utilities plan. This is a plan that shows all the necessary utilities that would be required to operate this building. So quickly, just sanitary sewer, water, domestic and fire, gas, electric, tel, and data. Most are available either in Elliott Street or Elliott Place and are sized appropriately. We have coordinated with the appropriate, utility and town departments, especially for sewer, to make sure that the service is adequate for the proposed use. The next plan that's coming up in front of you is a colored version of the site landscape plan. Just gave it a little color so you can understand the pervious versus impervious area. So just to give you kind of a color chart here, anything in this dark gray is, proposed impervious area in the form of asphalt or concrete. Any area that you see in green is proposed landscaping. The goal of this plan is to obviously provide a variety of trees, shrubs, and grasses to comply with town regulations, but also to provide a beautiful site for customers and employees of the restaurant. In addition to this, we did provide erosion and sedimentation control plans as part of the set. The goal of that is to provide erosion and sedimentation control during construction, and those items would stay in place until the site is stabilized. Some of those devices I'm talking about are silt fence, silt sack, construction entrances, soil stockpile areas, erosion control blanket. And the goal of that is to make sure that during construction, when earth is moving around and things are being built, that nothing is being blown or washed off site to affect abutters, the state road and the town road. And those items, as I said, should be in place until we have vigorous grass growth and stabilization to the landscape plan you see in front of you now. This is just a black and white version of that plan I just showed you that's coming up on your screen. The chart on the right obviously shows a diverse variety of trees, shrubs, ornamental grasses, perennials that do make up this site. So, it would be an attractive site for the town and obviously for patrons of this site. Last but not least, we do have provided a photometric plan of the development. This is showing the proposed site lighting in the parking lot and on the building. The goal of this is obviously to comply with town regulations to make sure there's no light trespass over the property line that would be a nuisance to any abutters or to anyone driving by. They are 18-foot tall fixtures spread around the parking lot to provide enough lighting for safety and security. They are LED, dark sky compliant, full cutoff fixtures as per your regulations. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's kind of a quick high-level summary of the civil aspects of the plan. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys may have. If not, I will pass the baton back to the next member of the team.
Thanks, Matt. Mr. Chairman, our next
Any members?
I'm sorry.
Hold on, Attorney Nuff, hold on one second. Any
Sure.
commissioners have questions about the site plan? I see Commissioner Braun, go ahead. And then Commissioner Corcoran.
Can you point, I might have missed this, but can you point out where the drive-through wends its way into the property and out of the property and through the property? I'm getting confused between, it looks like it's a part of the planting plan, but maybe that's the drive-through road inside the parcel? I can't really tell from the picture that I'm looking at.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Yep, I can
identify what page you're referring to, because mine is not in color, so I can't see that green on mine.
Sure, I'll show you the colored plan on the screen so everybody can get a clear picture, but it's depicted probably most clearly on the site plan if you have the hard copy, paper copy in front of you. So as I mentioned, there's two driveway locations proposed, one on Post Road, which I'm circling with my mouse right now on the bottom of the page, and another on Elliott Place here on the right-hand side of the page. The entrance to the drive-through is closest to Elliott Place. So where my hand is here would be the entrance here, and the speckled beige color is the double drive-through lane. So if you follow my mouse, you would pull in here, move a parallel to Elliott Street. There's an ordering canopy here to order food, and then you would continue on wrapping around the building to the western side. Again, another canopy to pick up food, and then again here you would rejoin the parking lot. At that point, you could park and eat. You could exit to Boston Post Road via this exit here, or you could exit straight across to Elliott Place as well. Does that answer your question?
That does answer my question about the drive-through. So there's a double lane drive-through, but and then people entering and exiting the parking lot, they can go in or out at both of those locations, the Elliott Place as well as the Post Road, or is it just one in and one out? Are they both?
Yeah, great question. Yep. So Elliott Place is full access, so you can turn in here, and then you can leave here. When you leave here, you can go left or you can go right. On Post Road, this is a restricted access given the proximity to the light, so you can take a right into the property, and you can take a right out of the property. That is it. So that is a restricted driveway.
So people exiting the drive-through would most likely exit and then take a right on the Post Road towards the intersection, I'm assuming. They couldn't take a left, so they would have to take a right towards the intersection with South and North Benson Road, I guess? Wait,
correct. The quickest way to leave the property would be a right out of the drive-through and a right onto Boston Post Road. You will be restricted from taking a left onto to Post Road because that is not a safe movement, and that is not something we were promoting here.
And how far is that egress from the intersection? I can't tell from the photo you have there. There's one. Is Sunny Days right next to that, or is that something else right there?
Yes, next to Sunny Days, that's correct.
Okay. So Sunny Days is the next parcel, and then there's the intersection right there. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Corcoran?
Yeah, I just like two things. I just like to continue on that for a second. If you exited on Elliott Place, and we have a letter from the town engineer discussing this, and you want to turn to the left, you have to cross the Route 1 traffic with no signal. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Corcoran. You know, we do plan on having a full traffic discussion. We're happy to answer any questions, but on traffic issues, you know, Clint Matson is going to be talking about, you know, on-site operations that has an impact on traffic, and then Rob Baltramatis, our traffic engineer, will be discussing this as well. So
Okay.
what the commission may want to consider is holding its traffic questions until we get through those two presentations.
Okay, I was just following up on Commissioner Brown's question.
Understand.
But I had another thing. I missed one of your points you made in your introduction about, you mentioned Starbucks and saying something about there's room for other franchises here. What was your point there?
Right. So the point was simply that we have a very large parcel as compared to other drive-through restaurants. And so if you were to simply apply all the requirements, setback, coverage, parking, we could easily put another pad site, you know, what's typically called in the industry a pad site of a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts in that front corner and still comply with all of your parking standards, bulk requirements, everything. But as I said, because we want to make sure that, you know, we had a large site to absorb the traffic and to make sure that there is no negative impact on the surrounding roadway network, we wanted to devote the entirety of the large sites to Chick-fil-A and not add any other uses.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Francis, and is there any other commissioners? With the screen sharing up and it can stay up, I can only see a few people. So if anybody else besides Commissioner Francis, just say so now, please. Commissioner Francis.
What?
Oh, sorry.
What is this right across the street? Across the post road here? What business is this?
There is a vacant gas station directly across the street at the corner of South Benson and Post Road.
Here, yeah. No, I meant more down here where Elliott Place is coming. People would come out of Elliott Place.
I think there's the pizza place, and then there's a sort of a I think it's Pizza Plaza or something to that effect, and then there's another retail building that has a number of tenants.
Perhaps Mr. Wen could answer my question.
Is your question, what are the commercial occupancies on the post road opposite this site?
Right opposite Elliott Place.
The parking lot, okay, there you go. As you see the Google image there, directly across Elliott Place is the parking lot for Pizza Planet. So there you go. On a Google Street View, you got Pizza Planet straight ahead. To the left is a center that has a Penfield Auto Service and Subway and other tenants. And to the right is a commercial building that has, I believe, offices on the second floor and I think a small retailer on the first floor.
All right. And we have two-way traffic there. This is, yeah. Okay. The block before we had traffic. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Elliott, did you? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you might have said it, but how many seats are proposed inside the restaurant?
I think we're at 100. Let me get you the exact number. 114 seats.
Okay. And then just another quick question. I don't know. You'll talk about signage maybe later, but will there be a sign proposed on Elliott Place?
No. So we have not submitted any signage yet, but it will be in full compliance. And I think we're allowed one, which would be on Post Road. But I mean, as you know, we will submit a sign application, and it goes on the commission's consent agenda. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a few questions, but does anybody, Commissioner Francis, and then anybody else? But go ahead, Commissioner Francis.
Plantings of native species.
Yes, Ms. Chairwoman, yes, they are all native species that are designed to obviously thrive in a commercial parking lot streetscape setting.
And is there a reason that there are not plantings? See those three, well, one tree next to the building, and then there are three more going out to Elliott Place on the parking.
Are you talking about three
Yes.
here, but not three here?
And why aren't why aren't there some there and on that other side of that parking grid too?
Yep, great question. We actually have a sidewalk that extends from the post road to the main entrance, but also into the parking lot here. So that those islands are occupied by concrete. So to allow for pedestrians, that's why we do show shrubbery in those islands, but not full trees like the islands across the way.
What about the ones down opposite it? Those are concrete too? Down
These ones here?
Or the no, at the other side, they're opposite. Or on the top.
You talking about these two here?
To your left.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
These ones here? Sorry. Yeah, so these spaces are, they're not islands, they're striped pavement. That's allowed to allow the dumpster and loading areas expected for the delivery trucks of the property. And I would like to point out, Mr. Commission Member, some of these trees that you do see that are kind of in a slightly different colored green that have a little bit of a circle around them. These are existing trees along the perimeter of the site that are mature and we are looking to save. So a lot of the newer green ones you see are being added to the site, but we're also trying to balance out and save a lot of the existing trees that do make this area more appealing.
Any other commissioners? Like I said, I had 2 questions. Commissioner Braun.
I'm looking at a plan farther down. It's like page 24 of the master package. It's called TT-2. It has like green arrows and also pictures of little cars lined up in the double like laned drive-through section. It's page 24 of the master. Yeah. It has thin green lines. I think it's supposed to depict the direction of cars, one direction cars could travel inside. If you could just clarify that. Yeah, I think that's it.
Is this
you blow it up at all?
TT1? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can you guys see the plan on the screen?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
The arrows go.
So,
yeah, you can explain that. Yeah.
yeah. So we're obviously showing black arrows, and I'll just highlight a couple of them in yellow. Right, they're over the place. This is just depicting the two-way nature of the internal driveways. What this plan, though, is supposed to depict is the truck turning analysis. So if I zoom in here, this is a program we use called AutoTurn, and it models the movement of vehicles on the property. So this is a plan depicting a fire truck emergency access vehicle, and the green lines depict the travel way of the tires as the vehicle moves through the property. So what this plan is depicting is that the fire department will have clean and safe access all around the parking lot, regardless of hitting any islands, to use either the Post Road entrance or the Elliott Place entrance. So we just wanted to show that from a public safety standpoint, the site has been well thought out to accommodate a large emergency vehicle if something were to happen on the property.
Okay, and then the other interesting part, and of course, it looks like they're taking a left onto the Post Road. Maybe that's a right in from the Post Road. Okay, that must be a right going in from the Post Road. It's interesting because you're showing actually the double line of cars lined up, filling that whole double lane drive-through. That's a lot of cars. That's a lot of cars. How many cars can fit if it's totally filled? The letters I've written seem to indicate there's lots and lots of cars that go to the drive-through. How many, do you have a projection of demand, or how many cars do you really expect to have? How many is that one?
Yeah, so the plan calls for a 36 car queue, and that is based upon Chick-fil-A's experience of what's going to be required at the site. So obviously we want to make sure that people can enter the drive-through in a safe and efficient manner, and in times of like great need or great demand, that driveway queue can be extended in a manner that we'll be showing you shortly. But it's a 36 car queue, which frankly exceeds the requirement of your regulations, which is only a 7 or 8 car queue.
So 36 cars is 18 two side by side, two side by side. I see. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And they're all going to exit probably on the Post Road right there, I imagine. They probably wouldn't wend their way through and go out to Elliott Place the way the fire engine does. They probably go right out on the Post Road and then go to that intersection. I guess the guy will address that.
Yeah, yes, many will, but we'll be getting into that when we discuss that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other commissioners, or may I jump in? Okay. For the queue, I see that there's, as I said, two lanes side by side. How does the outside lane get served?
That's a really good question. Clint's going to be addressing that he's the next presenter talking about the operation. So we can get into those details as soon as maybe we answer your other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so yeah, I think most of my questions go to operations. So we can, unless there's any other questions from anybody else from the commission. As I said, I can only see a few people. So make sure you're not on mute and please speak up. Hearing nobody, feel free to continue.
Okay, great. So next is Clint, who has spoken earlier, of course, from Chick-fil-A. He's going to walk you through the elevations, including the ordering canopy, the food delivery canopy, and then all the operations that would take place on the site. So, Clint?
Yeah, so what you're seeing on the screen right now is perspective views of the architectural aspects of our building. We take great pride in the...
Why?
Can you hear me?
Are you going to take a shower?
Okay, I heard someone else speaking, sorry.
Oh, I like that.
We take great pride in the way our building
Excuse me,
looks
if you're not
and our
speaking,
site
please
looks.
be on mute. Sorry, please continue.
Thank you. We take great pride in the way our building looks and our site looks at all times. We have a all brick two-tone building with brawn metal accents. As you can see, from the top left-hand corner, this is a perspective from Elliott Street showing our meal delivery canopy, and I'll talk about that in a few moments. Down below, that is that's on the southeast corner from Post Road, looking from the intersection of South Benson and Post Road. As you move around the page, the top right is what you will see back from Elliott Street and Elliott's Place from the corner, looking back towards our building, looking at the order point canopy and our patio. And then the bottom right is a perspective view looking from Post Road to our main entrance of our building and the patio right next to it. So these are just more expanded perspective views of our building. The top one is from Elliott Street. You can see both our order point canopy and our meal delivery canopy. And then the bottom one is looking standing inside of our parking lot, looking at the front of the building and our patio on the side, and then the order point canopy in the back. And these are just some architectural elevations. The top one is looking at the back of our building from Elliott Street. The bottom one is looking from the front of our building from Post Road. And then the next two are the top one is the west side where the meal delivery canopy is. And then the back on the bottom one is the east side looking from Elliott Place. And you can tell the two-tone brick facade is the darker brick with a lighter brick on top. And flip to the next slide. So as Matt was pointing out earlier, there's 2 points of egress on our site. When our guests arrive to our site, they can either choose to go to our drive-through, they can go to our parking lot to go into our building for dine-in. Depending on how the operation of our operator operates the store, there may be also curbside delivery and third-party delivery parking spaces for people to pick up food and deliver outside of our restaurant. There is 76 parking spaces on site. And then, as we mentioned earlier, there's 36 cars in our stack. Our projection of this is definitely not to have 36 cars in our stack at all times, but it is there to handle the capacity that we believe will be at this location. As you enter the drive-through, let's talk a little bit more about our operations of our drive-through. As you approach the drive-through, you will come in, kind of flow around to the left. You will come up to the first canopy highlighted in orange, and this is our order point canopy. At times of not peak hours, either breakfast or any odd hours of the day, There's 2 order points that our guests can come up and take and place their order. During busier times, we will have actually team members out into the drive-thru with iPads, taking your order, having that face-to-face ordering with our guests, that personal experience and customer service, to take their orders, answer any questions for them as they place their orders. Once their orders are placed, they will proceed down the drive-thru to our pickup window. And that is actually not a pickup window anymore. We have designed that as a pickup door. So our team members will be able to deliver meals to the cars face to face and order it through and deliver it through the window to their cars. And to answer your question earlier, we have 2 lanes through our drive-through. So that door allows our team members to safely walk out into our drive-through underneath our meal delivery canopy and deliver meals to both lanes. We have a 2-foot striped area in the middle of the 2 lanes that our team members can safely walk between the cars. They will crosswalk out to the second lane to deliver meals to our guests. And this also allows us to provide and deliver up to 8 meals at one time. We can take orders up to 6 to 8 meals at one time and deliver 8 at one time. The benefit of this, as we've learned over the many years and of our success, is this allows 8 cars to leave our site at one time. So it makes our drive-through very, very efficient. You can take orders, multiple orders at one time, and deliver 8 meals at one time. So the drive-through can actually exit the drive-through for our customers all at one time. As John was mentioning earlier, like we said, we have a 36 car stack and 2 orders of lanes. This allows our team members. Apologies. Our team members will. There's 36 car stack, and as John mentioned earlier, if our drive-through does back up past our drive-through entrance, we're able to accommodate 8 more cars, which is up to 44 cars in our drive-through in our parking lot without affecting any drive lanes. As you can see, the blue cars that are listed on here, those are the extra cars and the extra stack that we can accommodate on site without affecting any of the drive lanes. Our team members will definitely park in those parking spaces so our guests are actually not disturbed as they're parking. So our team members are there early in the morning, they park, and they leave different hours, not during peak times. This also shows the green lines that Matt was talking about earlier. Has emergency access for fire trucks and stuff, but it also represents our deliveries to our store. We have what we call a key drop delivery of our food. We typically have deliveries every night. They happen in the middle of the night. So a truck pulls into our site with no one else on site, is able to go to the back of our store and deliver the food into the restaurant safely, and then leave the site with no disturbing of our guests during open hours. I can answer any other questions about the site operations that you have at this point, or we can move on to some site comparisons.
Does anybody in the commission have questions regarding this part of the presentation? And like I said, I can only see a few people, so please make sure you're not on mute and speak up, please. Question for your operation. Compared to, let's just use Norwalk, how is this a bigger facility as far as kitchen capacity and ability to make and deliver meals? Is it bigger than most others in the area?
So the building size is about the same. Our building has grown a little bit in size, but we have, over the years, we've developed our kitchens to handle the capacity of our new restaurants. So it is a bigger kitchen, and it's a more efficient kitchen in the setup of the kitchen of how it runs, to where they prep food fresh every day as they come down the assembly line. We have a new mill assembly area where they assemble mills quickly and get them out to the front counter or to the drive-through very efficiently.
Okay. But as I understand, as I heard you, for example, and just use arbitrary numbers, Norwalk, it was designed to do, I don't know, 10 meals in 10 minutes. This is designed to, what, do 20 meals in 10 minutes?
Probably, it can handle the capacity of probably 3 to 4 times what Norwalk can handle.
Okay. Hold on one second. Okay, no, I think the rest I have is more traffic oriented. Any other commissioners have questions? Commissioner Braun?
Just regarding the site, I'm looking at the soil map, which is page 87 of your package. All those existing trees and sort of greenery, that will be paved over, I'm assuming. It looks like you're building out the whole site to accommodate, you're not keeping the old building, you're completely revamping the whole site, I assume, right? Nothing that's there now is going to remain.
That's correct, with the exception of those trees that Matt Bruton had pointed out earlier.
The new trees that you're planting.
Well, the new trees that are being planted, but also he had pointed out there are some mature trees around the periphery of the site that will be maintained.
Is that the one sort of towards the back near the train track next to Sunny Days?
Those that he's pointing out that are sort of a lighter shaded green with another circle around them.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Commissioner Francis, before we get to who, before you ask your question, just a public announcement. I saw Ms. Harrigan. For members of the public, when it's the public time for comments, if you can please sign up in the chat room on the bottom right, sign up in the chat so we know who would like to speak this evening. It's not that time yet, but I see Ms. Harrigan made an announcement on the chat and I wanted to follow up. Commissioner Francis?
The trees, I'm a little disappointed. It's a nice site plan. And it seems like you certainly had design experience, but the trees are a little lacking. I won't say any more, but I'll go over it with Jim sometime. I don't know, it's a little bare from the post road, I think. Could you?
We're happy to take a look at that. I mean, we do comply with your landscaping requirements, but we can look for other opportunities.
And Mr. Commission Member, please be aware too that there is an existing Eversource easement roughly where my mouse is circling. So there is a little bit of a restriction on how big and deep of a size of plantings that can be placed in this area because of some underground utilities that need to remain on site.
Commissioner Braun?
One last question about trees. It seems to me like we would want more trees. I'm just thinking in terms of 36 cars lined up. What's the average amount of time a car might be there if there are 36, if it's at full capacity? That how long each car is going to be there on idling their car? That's a lot of pollution, I was thinking.
So the cars in the drive-through, once you enter the drive-through stack, you will most likely be there less than 5 minutes. Typically, it'll be a lot less than that in the 2 to 3 minute time frame. It just really depends on the size of orders and stuff before then, but typically it's anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds per car that goes to that drive-through. And keep in mind, there's 36, there's 2 lanes going through, and each car, we can deliver 8 meals at one time, which gets them out of there faster.
Will you be providing sort of marketing or demand projections of just how much business you expect to do there? I am a little bit concerned about all that exhaust fume being there, how many hours a day. That's a lot of drive-through exhaust. I'd like to see a whole lot more trees to absorb it somehow.
And like John had mentioned, we can definitely
I'm sorry.
look at that. Yeah, we can definitely look at that from the landscaping standpoint.
Quick question, a question that jumped to my mind now. Have you used this for the queuing and your team members being out and about in the queuing? Have you used that model in other facilities?
Yes, we're actually using that all over the country right now. If you visit probably any Chick-fil-A in the area, during peak hours, they typically have team members out into the drive-through taking orders.
In Connecticut as well?
Correct. I have not visited the stores lately in Connecticut, but from what even before the COVID timeframe, they were delivering meals and stuff with people out into the drive-through.
I assume there's been no major safety concerns, no issues, that it's still going?
That's correct.
Any other commissioner? As I said again, I can't see most of you, so make sure you're not on mute and please speak up if you have a question. Hearing none, applicant, please move forward.
Thank you. So just a little bit on site comparisons around the area in Connecticut. A lot of people have brought up Norwalk. So we opened our first store in Connecticut in 2014. We have learned many lessons learned over the years. Our first site was designed to have about 15 cars in the stack. As you see on the screen here, this is Norwalk. This is designed to have 18 cars in our stack. It was built in 2017. This one actually is being evaluated right now to modify the site due to some of the traffic issues they're dealing with to increase the capacity and efficiency of the drive-through. As you move down to the next slide, this is Wellingford, I'm sorry. And this is designed to have 15 cars, and this was the first one that opened up in the area in 2014. So as you can see, this has a single lane entrance. Most of these you see now has a single lane entrance. They moved to 2 lanes, and then after the order points, they funnel down to 1 lane also to go to the pickup window. So as you can see on our site, we have 2 lanes of full drive-through, 2 lanes of ordering, 2 lanes of pickup. So as we've learned over the many years in our drive-through efficiency, to have a better experience for our guests. Next slide is just an example of Infield, which has a 17-car stack, same way, 1 order point or 1 entrance lane to 2, and then down funnel to 1. And you just click through these real quick. North Haven has a 26-car stack. This was a more recent store. It has 2 lanes of entrance, 2 lanes all the way to the building, and then 1 lane to the pickup window. And then last thing, at Southington has a 27-car stack that is on the top left-hand corner of this site. And you move to the last one. Just that this is a. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish up.
This is just a comparison chart of our existing restaurants around the area, and it shows the different lot sizes, at least areas of each of the sites, ranging from 0.89 acres to this one as 1.9 acres, close to 2 acres. It compares our parking spaces that we have on site. The lowest one having 45 spaces, and we have 76 spaces on site. And then just compares the drive-through stacking from what we've learned over the years, from 15 all the way up to 36 on the site. And just a quick comparison of the different sites around the area from different brands. They have much smaller sites, smaller parking lots, and less queue in their parking or in their drive-through.
Thanks, Clint. Mr. Chairman, obviously Clint would be happy to answer any operational questions or comparison questions to other sites. I know that we sort of belabored this issue with regard to queuing and all that, but we felt it's important to address this because, we saw a lot of the comments that the public has submitted and including photos or videos of other locations. And so we felt it was very important for the commission to understand that this site is dramatically different from all the examples that others have supplied of other Chick-fil-A's. And as Clint has told you, Chick-fil-A has learned a lot over its several years of experience, not only in Connecticut but elsewhere. Obviously, they've been doing this for many years, but they're always learning new things and learning new ways in which to serve their customers in the most efficient manner possible. So we wanted to make sure that the commission was fully aware and fully comfortable that we can accommodate all the drive-through traffic at our site and move those folks along as efficiently as possible so that none of the things that you've seen or may seen from the public will be happening at this location. So we appreciate you bearing with us as we work through that with some care.
No, of course. I mean, listen, it's not without any surprise to anybody on this meeting that traffic is one of the top concerns from the public and from this commission, as generally for all applications. So I understand we'll probably be getting to that next, I assume. Will these slides have they already been submitted to the record, or will they be submitted to the record?
They will be submitted for the record.
Okay. And I had a question regarding at least one of these slides, a comment being made, but I'll ask, does any of the members of the commission have any questions, additional questions? Commissioner Braun.
Just real quick about Norwalk. Could you possibly bring us back to the Norwalk aerial? That's one that's been mentioned, and I'm wondering what was the issue with the traffic, or how many cars can be stacked in Norwalk? That's a lot less than can be stacked in the proposed Fairfield. By stacked, I mean cars sitting in the drive-through. That's what stacked means, I assume?
That is correct. And Norwalk right now is a capacity of 18 cars.
About half, so half the size.
That's
and
correct.
What is the issue with Norwalk that's requiring them to now revamp their layout or do something with the town? What is the situation there in Norwalk?
They've had a lot of success in that area, and their drive-through is definitely under capacity, and they've had some issues with cars going out to the parking lot and off the site. So they want to address that as best as possible to give a better experience for the community and the guests that come on site.
Is the problem with the cars backed up going into the stacked, like too many cars stacked beyond the stacked section, or is it people entering and egressing the site?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I'm not involved in that one, or the reasons exactly why they want to do the thing, but from what I've heard is that they're having some traffic issues with cars stacking outside of the drive-through. So they want to make that experience better.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question was essentially what were the issues in Norwalk? Because you had said that you referred to the issues in Norwalk and that they had learned and that the facility had learned from them. So I was hoping to the extent that you already have not, you may have already done so with Commissioner Braun's question, what the issues were with traffic, the stacking or issues entering and exiting, and what was specifically done. But if you've already answered that, please just say so.
Yeah, I believe I've answered that question. The biggest issues are the traffic in the drive-through.
I think the important thing to point out, Mr. Chairman, is the fact that if you're looking at Norwalk in the proximity of that drive-through queue to the entrance and exit and compare that to our site, obviously we have considerably more room, not only in the queue, but even before getting to the queue. So that, a lot of the things that people have been raising with concerns about traffic at this location won't be the case in Fairfield, because I've been sort of using the analogy of our site being large, sort of as a sponge, able to absorb all of the traffic coming to our site without sort of spilling out onto the adjacent roadway system. So not only in the queue itself, but to the extent if it's necessary, even beyond that. So, but we're very confident that the 36-car queue will accommodate the busiest times at this store.
No, I mean, I understand your point. We'll get to the traffic aspect to it about how much water gets into the sponge and how much gets out, so to speak. In the next, I assume when you get to traffic issues. But again, does any other member of the commission have questions? Again, I can only see a few, so please make sure you're not on mute and speak up if you have a question. Hearing none, again, please proceed.
Okay, so our next presenter is our traffic engineer. He's a professional engineer, it's Rob Baltramitis.
Good evening. I'll start by asking if you can hear me.
You can, Rob.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name's Rob Baltramitis. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I've been consulting more than 28 years, mostly in the field of traffic, transportation, engineering. The last 20 years have also included my experience as a municipal engineer, a public works director. I mention that because I maintain and I operate 30 town-owned traffic signals. I provide commentary on civil and traffic matters to our land use boards, and also advice to our police chief, who's our local traffic authority on traffic matters. So I'm going to take you through the traffic study prepared by BL Companies. It's dated May 2021. It's been submitted for the record. Some of this intro will be a repeat. The site, of course, is the former Joe's American Bar and Grill, located at 750 Post Road. We are bordered by Post Road to the south, to the north by Elliott Street, and to the east by Elliott Place. The site has full access to all three of those roads. I just want to make sure my camera is on. Can you see me as well as hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Can I have the next slide, please, Matt? Okay, so the purpose of a traffic study, of course, is to determine the impact that a development will have on the adjacent roadway network and recommend mitigation if such is necessary. So to do that, we need to build, analyze, and compare three different scenarios, and those are called your existing conditions, your no-build conditions, and your build conditions, and I'll speak to each of those in a minute or so. For our traffic study, the times that we selected to analyze were typical morning peak times, weekday afternoon peak times, and Saturday midday peak times. We selected those as being appropriate because they are coincidentally the peak for this particular use and also for traffic on the adjacent roadway network. The study locations to the west, Route 1, signalized intersection, Route 1 at North Benson and South Benson. The signalized intersection to the east of Fairfield Center Shopping Plaza and Belmont Street. And unsignalized intersections adjacent to our site, Route 1 at Elliott Place, and also North Benson Road at Elliott Street. In the build scenarios, which means our project is built, we also analyze the two driveways that have been discussed. One is the right turn in and out only onto Route 1, and the other one is a full access driveway onto Elliott Place. So let's talk about that existing model, if you will. So existing traffic volumes were collected from a number of sources. One, back in 2020, there were manual counts done to supplement some other data that we received from DOT for the Route 1 intersections, the signalized intersections. I'll mention that we have been in contact with DOT to pre-approve our volumes. It's kind of an early step we did. A lot of times that's done after local approvals, but given the significance, we wanted to make sure we were starting with good solid numbers. And for what it's worth, in a very recent email, Bill Hurley did concur that the volumes in our study were consistent with that of the Post Road Circle study. So we know Route 1 is busy in the site vicinity and really up through all of Connecticut. So in the site vicinity, the ADT, or average daily traffic of Route 1, is about 25,000 vehicles per day. In the morning, passing our site is 1,965 cars. That is largely skewed westbound. 83% of those are westbound, 17 eastbound. In the PM peak period, there's 2,160 vehicles passing the site. 60% of those are eastbound, 40% westbound. And during our Saturday midday, we found 2,065 cars passing the site, and that was essentially split eastbound and westbound, almost 50-50. Matt, next slide, please. So once we have our existing volumes, we need to estimate our no build, or what's also called a background scenario volumes. And what no build or background is existing traffic volumes at the time of project completion, but it doesn't include the project. And if I was there in person, I'd probably look around and see confused faces when I explain that. So sometimes that's easier understood with an example. So if we had a project that was going to take 5 years to build out, we would want to know what's the existing traffic at the time of project completion or 2026. In our case, this is relatively simple construction. It's less than a calendar year to construct. So our no build scenario is essentially 1 year out. So we grow those existing volumes by 1%. That's typical in Connecticut to represent growth. We don't have any other significant projects that would add traffic to the roadway network. If we did, they would be added here in this no build or background scenario. Next slide. Thank you, Matt. So next, to determine the build volumes, we need to estimate what our site is going to generate for traffic. And we do that by using a publication entitled Trip Generation. It's published by ITE, or Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's been in development for more than 50 years. It's currently in its 10th edition. And what that publication is a compilation of studies that compares some tangible aspect of a land use to the known traffic that it generates. So in the cases of hotels, it might be the number of guest rooms. In the cases of fueling facilities, it might be the number of gas dispensers. For fast food with drive-through, the best, the most tangible aspect is the square footage of the building. The ITE estimates are based on more than 100 study sites. So it's very good information. Again, it's been updated through, all of the editions, again, in its 10th edition. And when we're talking about new site traffic, we can't talk about that without talking about bypass trips. So bypass trips are trips that will patronize a site because it's on the way. They're not new to the roadway network. The best example is a fueling facility. So we all stop and buy gas when we need it, but we probably didn't make a special trip to the gas station. We did it on the way somewhere else to another destination. That is an example of a bypass trip. Fueling facilities have very high bypass trips. So do fast food restaurants. Industry standard suggests that it's 50% or more, but we always take a conservative approach doing a traffic study. So we cap ourselves at only 20% of the site generated traffic is from pass by, and the rest of it is new. And that's a pretty conservative estimate to make. Next slide, please, Matt.
Now, when you say conservative,
yeah,
that means you're accounting for potentially more traffic.
Correct. So when I say conservative, when we're going to do our analysis in this build scenario, we are adding more traffic to the adjacent intersections to represent a more conservative scenario. Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next slide, Matt. Okay, this slide, hopefully you can see it better than I can, but this is a summary based on the ITE data of what the site will generate. So we anticipate that this use will generate 201 vehicles in the morning peak, 163 in the afternoon peak, and 274 during the Saturday midday peak. These are total trips. So in other words, if one customer patronizes the site, they enter and they leave, that's 2 trips. So the new trips to the roadway are actually 82, 68, and 112 new trips during the morning, afternoon, and Saturday peak periods. So I want to focus on this for a minute because I want to compare these volumes to what I mentioned earlier is on Route 1. We know that Route 1 is very busy. There's congestion, and intersections operate at or near capacity during the peaks. But when you look at what we knew to the roadway network, those 82, 68, and 112, when you look at the volume of traffic that's already on Route 1, again, about 2,000 cars in the morning, 2,200 in the afternoon, 2,100 on a Saturday, we're talking percentage increases that are 3 to 5%. That's within the daily fluctuation of any given day. It's very difficult to, it would be very difficult to see a tangible impact of those volumes, but we'll get to those analysis in a moment. I want to make this point too. We all know that traffic arrives randomly, but if it was uniform for the hour, and let's take the worst case scenario, the Saturday midday, 112 new trips, that's less than 2 vehicles per minute. 2 vehicles a minute is 120 in an hour. If you were looking at Route 1 for a minute and I added 2 vehicles in that minute, I challenge you that you wouldn't notice. And that's just a point that I think we all need to understand. As successful as these facilities are, they're not major traffic generators. Most fast foods are located on state highways. Even OSTA, formerly STC, they haven't changed their definition of major traffic generators and pull these type of uses in for certificate because they're just not that. Next chart, please, Matt. Okay, this is a peak hour trip comparison. What I want to do here is point out, we know that Joe's American Bar and Grill is not in operation right now, but if it was in operation based on ITE data for that type of use, a family sit-down style restaurant, there'd be traffic associated with that. And while our use is slightly more intensive, our use would only add 47, 29, and 75 new patrons during the morning, afternoon, and Saturday peak period. So we just want to point that out that there is, although it's vacant, there is the potential for a fair amount of traffic generation with what already exists on that site. And somebody could really come in and operate it as of right tomorrow. Next slide, Matt. Okay, so now we have our volumes, we have our existing, our no build, and our build scenarios. So it's time to build the models for analysis and comparison. So the analyses follow the methodology of what's called capacity manual. It's published by the Federal Highway Administration's Transportation Research Board. The computer model we use is called Synchro. It follows that methodology. So what goes into these models? Well, clearly the volumes by turning movement that we talked about. Other factors are lane configurations, lane widths, the approach grades, and of course the traffic controls. Is the approach a free flow condition? Is it stop controlled? Or does it have some other traffic control based on signal timing? The models that are prepared predict the average delay experienced by a motorist. The more delay and level of frustration there is, the lower the letter grade that is assigned to the operation, and you've heard this term, we call that level of service. So it's very much like school grading, except we do use E, where schools do not. So level of service A would represent essentially a free flow condition, and level service F would be excessive delays and motorist frustration. So one of the things I always like to point out, I hear all the time that traffic engineering is voodoo, and how can 2 traffic engineers have stark differences for the same conditions? My answer is they can't. Modeling of intersections is very similar to modeling any other engineering system. As an example, I'll use a pipe network. So if an engineer is telling you that yes, there's enough capacity in this pipe to handle the additional runoff that our site is putting off, what they're doing is they're looking at some of the physical properties of that pipe. They're looking at the diameter, the slope, and the pipe material. That's going to determine capacity. You have a flow that's in there. What's the reserve to accommodate more flow? Traffic engineering in this modeling is the same thing. The road network is the pipes. The lane configurations, the traffic volumes, the traffic controls are the same physical properties. So let's get to the goods. Next slide, Matt. We'll start getting into the resultant level of services. And what we do is compare the no build and the build scenarios. So I'm going to show you 3 slides representing the AM, then the PM, and the Saturday conditions for the study intersections. I think what I will do is start. So first of all, what you're looking at is what look like bullseyes, and there's a color scale there. So the inner circle represents the full build scenario. The outer circle represents the no build scenario. So I think for simplicity, I'm going to start at the, well, top left-hand corner that's analyzed. That's the intersection of Elliott Street at North Benson. So as we can see, that no build scenario is level service B, and it moves to a level of service C with the new site traffic applied to it. Still very good level of service in the morning. Working down from there, the intersection of Route 1 at North and South Benson will operate in the no build without site traffic, and essentially a failing level of service. But we can actually make that better just by making signal modifications, and that we propose to recommend that to the Department of Transportation to adjust signal timings in there. I'm going to take this point to mention to you, we recently received comment from Bill Hurley. So in this particular condition, in the AM, we are going from a poor level service like an F to a D. We actually had it a little better at level service C in the full build scenario. But we were looking to modify the pedestrian phasing from a fully exclusive PED phasing to what's called concurrent PED phasing. It's actually something that DOT is looking to do at most of the 2,500 intersections around the state, with pedestrian phasing. So without getting into the weeds on that too much, I think it's fair to say that town staff was very protective of their exclusive PED phasing at that intersection. So we reran the analyses in all 3 of these scenarios, keeping the PED phasing the way it is, but we're still making timing modifications to the traffic signal for improvement.
Can you go through quickly for the record? Apologize, but just go through what you meant by concurrent phasing and exclusive phasing. Can you describe them for the record, please?
Yep, absolutely. So exclusive PED phasing is exactly that. All traffic, all vehicular traffic is stopped at all approaches, and pedestrians crossing will get a signal that it is clear to walk. There is no approaching vehicles from any approach. Then, of course, is the don't walk clearance part of that. But we call that exclusive when the use of the intersection is solely for the pedestrian. Now, with concurrent phasing, the pedestrians would have the same signal indication in front of them. It would start with a walk signal and then go to a no walk during the clearance. The difference is that the vehicular traffic is allowed to also proceed parallel with the pedestrian crossing. So pedestrians and vehicles still have to be cognizant of right turns, left turns, but the state has found that it's still very safe operation, and they process a lot more vehicles through the intersection because they're not necessarily stopped for the exclusive PED phases. But again, we totally understand staff's concern, and that's why we ran our analysis yesterday. So these presentation graphics already address that staff concern.
And what other sequencing did you recommend for that intersection?
So really, the way traffic signals work is they are set up with each phase. I mean, there could be in this case there's advanced left turn phases, but every phase is going to have a minimum and a maximum setting. So sometimes it's really as simple as increasing a max setting or decreasing a max setting so that you could take advantage of a longer max somewhere else. So it really is just balancing it all out to get that better snappy operation.
And this sequencing has to be approved by the Connecticut DOT?
Absolutely. DOT obviously owns and maintains both of these signalized intersections. But the one we're talking about for an improvement, DOT would have to concur with that recommendation for signal timing. So one of the questions, actually, so Bill Hurley asked me 2 questions yesterday regarding this. Number one, he said, how easy is it to implement a change like this? I was like, well, this intersection is part of the state's closed loop traffic signal system. What that means is up in Newington, Connecticut, in front of a computer, they are able to upload and download signal timing, phasing, coordination data right on the fly. So it's very simple to implement. The other question that Bill asked me is, well, what's the likelihood of them implementing this? So being as honest as I could, I told him, I said, well, you know, I run into this quite a bit, again, as a municipal engineer. If for many of the state traffic signals we have in my town, we can get very poor operation or level service just on the side street approaches. Well, those are town approaches, town streets. DOT is usually concerned about their arterial. They want to move traffic on their state highway. However, North Benson, as you know, is a state highway. So I think it's very likely that they would look to improve operation of the side streets as well.
And for your analysis, your recommendation or your testimony, whatever, does this sequencing need to be done in order for traffic to be appropriate for this new use?
Well, the operation could be made better. It currently in the morning, this is a level service app. I mean, this is poor operation. We're able to make it better with timing improvements. So it's a you know, it's a good recommendation that we're making. You know, our site traffic, if it's unchanged, our site traffic isn't making it any worse.
Well, I mean, you're making your recommendation is that the sequencing be changed and that it would help the level of service. And that's
well, not the
well
sequence.
And fair. I mean,
not the sequence. Sorry, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't recommend that the sequencing be modified, but just the timings.
Just the what?
Just the timings of the phases.
Okay, my mistake. So
no
still the same question. I mean, your recommendation is that the timing be changed in order for the service levels to become an F to a D, to make those service levels better. Now, I agree, just in general, that would make sense, and that doesn't mean it always happens. For whatever reason, the state has a different mindset or a different this. So again, even though I see that the level of service improves, do you need this change in timing? Is it your testimony or your recommendation this timing change is necessary for the traffic to be appropriate for this site?
No, because if it's unchanged, the operation of that intersection will not change with our new site traffic. The recommendation for the timing modification is solely to make it better, even with our site traffic applied.
But you're at let's just go with the assumption that for whatever reason the state says no, and you have a service level F at this intersection. Now the site is going to be directing, for certainly one egress, is going to be directing it to the right, onto off of the site. If you're going off the site, off to the right, so they would be going what, west on Route 1. So again, assuming the service level stays the same because the timing isn't changed, a good portion of the traffic is going to be directed to this intersection. So it has to make it worse to some extent, right?
Well, certainly, you know, again, so we talk about level service A through F. You know, you certainly could be degrading it slightly. You know, if your level service F is an average delay of 100 seconds, perhaps it goes to 102. And I'm just using that as an example, you know, without looking in the back of the report to see the actual analysis. My point is, while, you know, the model will show that there's a slight degradation, you know, there's no real life change to that.
Well, I mean, listen, it's always the sense that we hear this quite frequently, you know, it's just an extra drop in the bucket. And at some point the bucket overflows when you have this extra drop, but it's only an extra drop, you know, 1-3%. But you're and I'm trying to figure out, again, from you where your recommendation, your testimony is. If the sequence, how important this timing is to your analysis. So have you looked at what would happen if the timing did not change and what the effect would be on that intersection?
Well, I know that it would be unchanged. It'd begin at level service F, remain at level service F, and have a slight degradation overall. So everybody at that intersection, everybody's average delay would go up slightly, but it's incremental where it's not a tangible degradation. I think that what I'm trying to say,
maybe not tangible, but maybe your word is material. I mean, certainly it's going to go up, like you said. It's just your point is it's not going to go up that much.
Correct.
Okay.
But I think the proper thing to do when you see there's room that an improvement could be made is to recommend to DOT that they make the timing modification to accomplish that.
Okay, and then just to close the loop, though, it's your testimony that even though the sequencing would, the timing would make sense for all the reasons you said, it's not necessary.
It's not necessary, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so working our way, I'm going to say east and north on Route 1 interchangeably this evening because we know that Route 1, of course, is a north-south roadway, but through the town of Fairfield essentially runs east and west as north runs. So,
thank you.
So moving north and east on Route 1, the next intersection we would come to is our site driveway at Route 1. That, as we explained, is proposed to be right turn in and out only. That will operate at level service C, good level of service. As queues dissipate, traffic moves, gaps are created, right turns are egressing that site. Proceeding north and east again, the next intersection is Route 1 at Elliott Place. That, presently, under the no build condition, I should say, would operate at poor or failing level service. Of course, would be, continue to do so. I'm going to have a lot of commentary on Elliott Place and Route 1, so I won't even get into the weeds with that one just yet. The next intersection working north and east is Route 1 at Fairfield Center in Belmont Street. Level service B in both conditions, very good level service. And of course, the last one is our site driveway onto Elliott Place, also very good level service.
So let's go, if we can. I want to South Benson and Elliott Street. Why? Yes. I have a guess as to why the change is made, but why do you see a change from A to C there?
Simply with the application of site traffic exiting, being in unsignalized intersection. So
you think that?
And it wasn't A; it should be a B. It was a B to a C.
I'm sorry. That's
all right. There's two different color Bs there. I think they're hard to discern, but it's.
Thank you. Can you say why again go from a B to a C after build?
Just because we are going to have additional traffic applied there, additional site traffic.
And I'll kind of back into where I'm going with this, but for the exiting on the post road, how is it going to be enforced that it's a right only?
So, as part of the conclusions recommendations that I was going to close with, it's our recommendation based, of course, on the volume of traffic along Route 1, that it be right turn in and out only. We will work with DOT on the driveway geometry and the regulatory signage. So I guess the answer to your question is both by geometry and signage prohibiting left turns.
Geometry being curb cuts? Correct. Okay, because there's been a few curb cuts in Fairfield to do what you're proposing, and they don't often sometimes end well. they still kind of make the left, which would be a problem because we'd have people taking the left out of the site and taking the left off of Elliott Place. How, in reviewing the traffic, if somebody on the site is going to essentially head east onto the Post Road, I foresee at least a few instances where they'd either exit onto Elliott Place and then make the left onto Post Road to go east. The other way I would think would be you would exit the site on the Post Road, take a right on South Benson, take a right on Elliott Street, take a right on Elliott Place to take a left on Post Road. Is it fair to say that most people, or if it's even not the design of this site, is to be taking a left? If you're going to be taking a left to, if you're going to be exiting to travel east on the Post Road, the design is that you're supposed to be ending up on Elliott Place to take that left?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And at that point, we don't have signage on Elliott Place. Certainly not stop signs on Post Road. I assume there's a stop sign on Elliott Place to stop you from going into Post Road, but not a traffic signal, nothing proposed to help that flow to take that left from Elliott Place onto Post Road.
No, and I was asked a question, by staff about, even the possibility of traffic signalization for Elliott Place. Number one, it would be beyond the scope of a 5,000 square foot restaurant to suggest such a thing. But there's two main problems with that. Number one, the proximity of the adjacent traffic signals. DOT is very reluctant to approve a traffic signal within 1,000 feet of another one. And secondly, the volumes from Elliott Place, they're not going to meet what are called traffic signal warrants. So there's a federal highway document called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And in that are standards to demonstrate an actual need or warrant for the installation of a traffic signal. And if they're not met, and the only one that could even possibly apply here would be side street volumes so heavy for 8 hours out of 24 days that it would warrant an installation. And it's the side street volumes are nowhere near that to warrant it.
And how many, if you're getting to it, that's fine. How many trip generations do you have exiting the site going east onto Post Road?
So,
and if you're getting to it, that's fine.
Yeah, I am, and I can do it quickly because I had notes about this because I anticipate anticipated these questions. So, in the worst case scenario, the worst of I say the worst, but the most intense of our peak, of course, as I explained, is the Saturday midday peak period. And of all the site-generated traffic, the portion that we estimate making a left turn from Elliott Place onto Route 1 is 47 vehicles in an hour.
That's midday Saturday?
That's midday Saturday. It's less in the AM and PM peak periods. Those are 35 and 28 respectively.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other commission members have questions at this point? I think he's still in the middle of his presentation, so we can wait a little longer. I jumped in maybe a little prematurely.
Mr. Chairman, if I can butt in for just a moment,
Sure.
and I'm just going to bring a little bit of local flavor. Frankly, as someone who's lived in or near Fairfield since 1990, I think the other issue that we have included in our study to some extent, but try not to be too conservative or try not to be too aggressive, is the fact that local Fairfield residents, if they are traveling east or west through Fairfield on a busy Saturday, are inclined to use 95, even if it's only for an exit or two. So we would fully anticipate, as our customers become familiar with the site and familiar with traffic conditions, and which they can view, of course, that some people who need to travel eastward from this location would make the easy ride onto Post Road, right onto North Benson, and then the right onto I-95, and then get off at, 23, 24, 25, which would be a relatively simple maneuver if that's there, and which provides a nice option as compared to making the left out of Elliott Place.
No, and that's an obvious and fair point. But I was curious if people are still going east on Post Road to go somewhere that they were planning on going, home, or is, as they said, not a pass through, but a pass by. I forget the proper term. There's going to be people going on Post Road, and it struck me that Elliott Place is the road that they're going to be taking a left onto Post Road in order to get to east on Post Road. You're not wrong though, with 95 being another option.
Thank you. All right, Rob, sorry to jump in.
No, that's okay. And you know what? So the next two slides are the level of service summaries for the PM and the Saturday conditions. And Matt, you could just skip right to the next one too. You know what? They're very similar to what we just discussed in great detail for the morning peak period. I think we all get the idea.
One more. I'm sorry. Just 'cause I'm not sure if you said it. I just want to make sure. With respect to the pedestrian timing or the sequencing, whatever the proper term is, with that Mr. Hurley had reached out to you about concurrent versus exclusive. What is your plan to keep it exclusive then?
Absolutely. That's the wishes of town staff, and we're not going to do anything different than that. No.
No, that's fine. The thought crossed my mind that I wasn't sure if I got an answer to that.
No,
sorry.
No problem. Okay, so I do want to obviously talk about Route 1 at Elliott Place, but a couple of conclusions from the report that adjacent intersections, as explained and as demonstrated by the analyses, very minimal impacts by the proposed development. We discussed how we propose to work with Connecticut DOT on revising the signal times at Route 1 in North and South Benson. That will result in improvement of operation even with our site traffic. As we just discussed, we are proposing to keep the exclusive pedestrian phase per town staff. And it'd just be timing modifications to the existing phasing that's there. I talked about the Route 1 driveway, right turn in and out only, of course, a full access driveway onto Elliott Place. Again, we're subject to what's called an encroachment permit from Connecticut DOT because we're along a state highway. So we have to seek a permit for them to construct our driveway. They will obviously be looking at this proposal from traffic aspects. So it's another layer of traffic professionals reviewing this application. And again, that driveway on Route 1 will be constructed per their requirements and standards. So let's talk about Route 1 in Elliott Place. I think we all recognize that it does and will operate at poor levels of service. So one of the reasons is we as traffic engineers, when we evaluate a unsignalized intersection, we look at the worst movement, that delay, and that's the left turn exiting. And whatever that level of service is, we say that applies to the whole intersection. So in a Saturday period, when there's 62 vehicles looking to turn left, it's those 62 vehicles that are experiencing the delay. The other 2,200 vehicles processing through that intersection along Route 1 have little or no delay experience. But again, we assign it what looks like a terrible, poor level service because of that one minor movement. And I think for those left turns, the delay in the model, it's exaggerated. And I say that because the truth is there's gaps created every 90 seconds or so in the Route 1 southbound traffic stream because of the traffic signal at Route 1 and Fairfield Center, Belmont Street. There's a exclusive northbound left turn phase at that intersection that stops southbound traffic, and that creates gaps across the site and across Elliott Place. And it's those gaps that will allow left turns to get out to northbound Route 1. I think it was tonight somebody might have made a comment about, you know, trying to make that left turn and cross some 5 lanes of traffic. You're really crossing 2 lanes of traffic, southbound traffic, which again, clear due to the gaps. You have, we have an exclusive left turn lane from Fairfield Center that extends 300 feet going south. It extends past Elliott Place. It extends well into our site frontage. Of that 300 feet, the last 90 or 100 feet or so is available storage for left turns into Elliott Place. The queuing models, that's representative, that's of about 3 to 4 cars. It's sufficient for the total site traffic that we're anticipating. So, you know, we're talking an awful lot about the left turns from Elliott Place, but there's options here. And you mentioned a couple already. One is you could take a right onto North Benson from Elliott Street and utilize I-95 to go up to exit 23, put you on Route 1 across from Home Depot. It's 3,000 feet away. It's just over a half mile. If your destination is Route 1, you know, Home Depot or further, the reality is I-95 acts as a frontage road to Route 1. You people in Fairfield, you know this. You have 5 or 6 interchanges along 95 in your 5-mile width of the town of Fairfield. That I-95 acts as relief for Route 1. The other thing one could do is you could utilize and take a left turn onto North Benson and another left onto Route 1 to head northbound. Even in our peak hours, that left turn onto North Benson, it operates at level service C, D, and D during the AM, PM, and Saturday. Those are acceptable levels of service. That is a realistic alternative to making a left turn from Elliott Place. And finally, and we're not representing that we have the legal right, but the plaza owner of Fairfield Center is supportive of our project. He knows who we are and what we bring. There are 4 cut-throughs from Elliott Place to Fairfield Center, and that gives you access to the traffic light to make a left northbound. So there's really 3 solid alternatives to making that left turn from Elliott Place if people elect not to do it. And I think, honestly, in my experience, at the end of the day, the intersection of Route 1 and Elliott Place is going to operate better than the model predicts. You know, it's the operation there is not created by Chick-fil-A. It's present. It would be present there if there was an operator, as we mentioned, who took over, you know, Joe's American Bar and Grill. It's but there's good alternatives here. The site and Elliott Place has that exclusive left turn lane, northbound Route 1 to take advantage of, and I think it'll go a long way to ease in operation. So with that, I will turn it back and, of course, entertain questions.
Does any member of the commission have questions? I do. I just want to make sure. Again, I can only see a few people, so I saw Commissioner Braun. Does anybody else? Yeah, if we can stop sharing screen, that way I can see everybody. Well, as I say that, I think I here. Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
Can you address the sight line issue that was raised, I think, in the town engineer's report or review, and also the crash history? I'm just reading your report. Did you talk about crashes? Because I didn't hear, I might have not heard you, but it said in your report 119 crashes, of which 2% were associated with serious injury and 7% associated with minor injury. That's 9% associated with injury, which is like around 10 people injured in the last 4 years. That's without the development. So, and most of it said also that more of the crashes took place at the intersection of Route 1 and North Benson, which is right where cars from the 36 car stacking drive-through are going to be coming out of mostly, I would think. Can you address that?
Thank you. So, as part of a traffic study, we always look at the crash history because we try to see if there is a significant pattern with incidents and if there's something that can be done to lessen them. So quite honestly, in DOT concurs, while there's a number of crashes, it's not significant. Number one, the type of crashes that are there are very common at signalized intersections, and just given the volumes, the number of incidents is not significant. And so the comment you mentioned about the sight line, I think I would need to see that comment again to understand what sight line was of
It might have
concern.
it might have been in the email we received from Bill Hurley mentioning there might be a sightline problem if cars are queued up somewhere. Let me look at what he wrote.
It says, major
We got
concern
from
from
him
engineering.
6. Yeah.
Major concern from engineering and police department about egress traffic taking the left off Elliott Street and crossing US 1 in between traffic signals. It is possible sight line will be blocked by queuing traffic. That's what we have.
That's the one from Elliott Street taking a left going towards Bridgeport, I'm assuming. Or Elliott Place? He must mean Elliott Place.
Exactly, I believe he does. So, and again, this is talking about crossing 3-4 lanes of traffic. You're really crossing 2 lanes of opposing traffic in the southbound direction. And I think, so we had this conversation yesterday with staff, including Bill. And I think what he was referring to is the left turn lane, if that was backed up, that could restrict some visibility. But the queuing of that left turn lane into Fairfield Center, it just doesn't occur. It's no more than 3 vehicles in that whole 300 feet during any of those peak hours.
Could you just clarify queuing of left turn lane? Which intersection are we talking about? Or which
So that would be left turn lanes northbound at Fairfield Center, is how I understood his comment.
Oh.
So off of Elliott Place.
So heading towards Bridgeport from Elliott Place. Okay.
Correct.
And can you, I'm trying to understand, maybe Mr. Hurley can speak at some point, but his email mentions something in the appendix about traffic improvements involving elimination of the exclusive pedestrian phase. I'm not sure what that means exactly.
Yeah, so
what is that? What is he referring to?
All right, so this is where the issue of the concurrent pedestrian phase that was originally recommended versus the exclusive head phase. So we got into that quite a bit tonight. So what he was pointing out is, well, yeah, you're showing some pretty aggressive improvement in the operation of the signal. We don't feel comfortable removing that exclusive head phase, and given that, we're in agreement.
Okay. And the chart that you were showing us with the bullseye targets, are you going to send that to us? I don't think that's in the 498 page.
Yeah, so the entire presentation, I believe we're going to submit electronically or paper copies tomorrow. But just keep in mind, all of that information, although it's a different graphic, it is contained in the traffic study. It wasn't new information, it was just presented differently.
And in terms of the level of service at these intersections, if it's an F level of service now, going back to like your bullseye chart, and it's going to stay an F level of service. I think that was the left turn or any turn off of Elliott Place onto the Post Road. Could you let us know? Is it going to get worse? Is it? How do we determine if it's worse, even though it goes from F to F? F is bad, and F after development must be worse. But how much worse is it? Even though
So if you give me a couple minutes, I can go through and find that information. I just don't have it offhand. But you, as I said, you can definitely have different levels of F. I mean, you can have a delay that just puts you in the F category, and you can have an F that's so bad you're never going to get out of there. Not the case here, but to your point. So, you know, I can look for that and get you that information.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'd like to know how much worse of an, I guess we should have more categories, F minus, F minus minus. And then
You know, it's funny you say that. In some states, particularly California, they actually break down and grade their level of service F.
That's a good idea. Regarding the DOT changing the signaling of the light, is there any reason why it can't be fixed now, even without development? I mean, why is it so bad? Can it be done now without the development? Making it better? It sounds like you're saying development will be better, but it could be done even without the development, right?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And you know what I attribute this to is, and I see it in my own town. You know, the people who operate the traffic signals are generally at a computer in Newington, and they're not necessarily seeing what's happening on the street.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Before I jump in, does any other member of the commission have questions? Okay. Mr. Balterman, sorry. Were you involved with the other, let's just use Norwalk application, with doing the traffic study there?
I was not.
Okay. So one of the things that catches my attention is you use ITE trip generation. And I'm going to surmise or infer that Norwalk, the application for Norwalk used ITE as well. As you said, the standard, we don't, you know, I suspect that that's what they used. And there's no reason to suspect otherwise. But they still had traffic issues in Norwalk. Despite using the ITE, they had issues, everything went above what they thought. The queuing was higher than they expected. The traffic generation, I think, was higher than expected. I think just simply doing a Google search, notwithstanding all the emails received, even Mr. Hurley references it as well, that it's well documented that there was some traffic issues in Norwalk despite the whatever traffic study report they used there. Did you, and I assume did you look at the actual traffic counts for what was done in what happened in Norwalk, and made a comparison to what was provided to what a traffic study was provided in Norwalk?
I did not, but what I will say is that when we prepare a traffic study, you know, following ITE DOT methodology, we're going to use the land use code, the ITE land use code that applies, and it's not going to be tenant specific. What I do, so let me just talk about Norwalk. Unless I'm mistaken, and I've had a lot of conversations with the team, I believe the issue there is not necessarily traffic getting into and out of the site. It's the queuing, the lack thereof spilling out of the site that is problematic. It's not the ability to get the cars, you know, into and out of. The difference here, we're significantly larger, our site, significantly more queuing, and our site can absorb that queuing. So Clint had given you, he showed you a table with the site comparisons of different locations. So what I was doing during his presentation is I was looking at these 5 other Chick-fil-A sites in Connecticut besides what's being proposed here. And I looked at some averages. The average lot size, 1.1 acre. Our site, 1.9, 40% larger. The average of those 5 sites, total parking spaces, 61 spaces. Our site, 76, 20% larger. But the coup d'etat, if you will, as we explained, we have queuing for 36 cars plus another 8 additional for 44. The average queuing on those 5 Chick-fil-A sites, 21 spots. We're more than double. So I don't think we can drive that point home, you know, more that, you know, this site is able to absorb a worst case scenario, and we're confident of that. There's a stark difference here.
Here's my concern, though. It strikes me that there might be an edge to this to a double-edged sword argument here. You're telling me that this restaurant is designed to have 3 to 4 times capacity than the one in Norwalk. You're planning on the queue being 36 spaces, extra parking, all because you've learned from Norwalk or other places that you're having these troubles. But yet you're coming to me with ITE, which is what they used in Norwalk, not actual counts. And I understand your point that it's bigger and that it's a bigger sponge. But if you're using ITE, which I'm going to infer is lower than the actual counts based on the other sites in Connecticut, your point taken that it's a bigger site, how do I feel comfortable accepting ITE trip generation? I mean, especially if you have not looked at the actual counts that happened over there. They were expecting, I mean, I would expect that Norwalk and all the others were planning on that they would have a big enough queue, and they didn't. And my concern is now you're telling me you're planning on it being bigger, but your capacity is going to be larger, potentially, serving 8 meals at a time, meaning now I got, instead of maybe, any other fast food place, 1 car leaving every 30 seconds, I got 8 leaving every 30 seconds, maybe to a minute. Chick-fil-A is very popular. I think Mr. Hurley said it best, maybe a victim of its own success. I thought that was very well worded. So, yes, I know the ITE is standard. We use it regularly. We see it regularly. But now I have conflicting reports from other locations that are not like down the street where we could say, hey, this is going to be offset because you got 2 others in town, or 1 in Trumbull, 1 in Westport. You got 1 in Norwalk and Wallingford, not close where I think that they're going to absorb people coming. So, I mean, besides it being a standard, shouldn't we be looking at actual counts and comparing what happened in Norwalk instead of just relying upon the ITU?
Mr. Chairman, we understand it's a bit of a nuanced argument in terms of capacity on our site and actually, number of cars coming to our restaurant. But I think what you've seen in terms of, the concerns that people have raised with regard to Norwalk and other locations really is a queuing issue backing out onto the roadways. I don't think it's just a pure numbers issue. It's an issue of insufficient queuing capacity and insufficiently large sites. And I think that's why we've been driving home this issue with regard to the size of our site, the length of our queue, so that the issues that have arisen in other locations arise not from just the traffic volume, it's primarily from the inability of the drive-through lanes to process the cars that are there. And that leads to queues backing up onto the streets. So it really is more of a queuing capacity issue than it is a true level of service issue.
But you are going to be generating a lot of trips, and not just in the peak hours. So even if I accept the fact that there's going to be no queuing issue, you're still going to be having 36 cars in the queue, the whole parking lot potentially filled, and then coming in and out. I mean, obviously not constantly throughout the day, I get that much. But you are going to be adding, what I heard 3% thrown out earlier, 5%. It strikes me that the ITE may be underrepresenting what Chick-fil-A will be generating, and we can look to other sites to kind of point to. Or is it just your contention that it's just the queuing issues that were causing trouble in the other places?
It's our contention it's a queuing issue, and the other issue is we can only go by what DOT requires us to do. DOT requires us to use the levels of service or the volumes as indicated in the ITE manual. And we've done that. And in addition, nevertheless, we're trying to treat this as conservatively as possible. As Rob had indicated, while ITE would understand that for a drive-through restaurant, half of the customers coming would be passed by traffic. DOT only allows us to use 20%. So again, that's another very conservative way in which we're approaching our traffic analysis.
I mean, listen, we go by the special permit. One of the considerations for us is traffic, obviously. I mean, we're not, I don't believe, limited to what DOT tells us. If there's going to be a significant burden on our traffic, then we will look towards that. And I don't think just because the DOT says you have to use 20% is what we are limited to. So, I mean, your point is well taken. I understand that. But as I said, I think my concern still stands that we may be underrepresenting the count generation. And I think we can point to concrete examples of that.
Why don't I and the team sort of discuss in the interim, and we'll come up with a better or an explanation of the distinction between traffic volume and traffic generated coming to site versus the on-site operations at queuing.
Okay. Now, do you have a contingency plan in case the queuing line is insufficient?
Right. So that's what Clint showed you earlier. The ability to extend that queue by another 8 cars, which would be, I mean, we believe that 36 is sufficient, but in the worst case scenario, those additional 8 cars, along with Chick-fil-A team members being in the parking lot, and they have great experience doing this, helping to direct traffic to use that parking area for additional queuing.
And I suspect the most, in your mind, or suspect in my mind as well, if worst came to worst, the logical place for queuing on street would be Elliott Place and Elliott Street, not likely going to be US 1.
Definitely not US 1. I don't even think Elliott Street or Elliott Place. I mean, in the absolute worst case scenario, we could extend that queue on the other side of the drive aisle.
Yeah, I wanted to point that out, Attorney Nuff. I agree with you. I don't see any potential for queuing to extend onto any of the public roadways. So maybe, Matt, if you could put a presentation graphic back up again, just so maybe that queuing plan, because to Attorney Nuff's point, even with the 8 additional queuing spaces getting us to 44, you could start stacking on the other side of the drive aisle that crosses, and then have quite a bit more stacking, and all of it on the site. And again, I think that's why we use the term that the site can absorb whatever's thrown at it.
For anybody in your party, how many meals are served in Norwalk on a Saturday, or starting on a Saturday? Do you have those figures? How much is served?
No, I do not have those figures in front of me right now.
Okay. I mean, to the extent that can be reported back to us, I think that would be helpful. And it doesn't have, it can be Norwalk, it can be any other location, but if that's possible, that would be helpful in my view.
Yeah, we can look into
Any
that.
other members of thank you. Any other members of the commission have questions? Attorney Nuff, Commissioner Braun?
When you talk about the peak hours, and I apologize if you mentioned this, peak hours of traffic might be different than peak hours of going to Chick-fil-A. Is there a difference?
No, that's one of the things that Rob pointed out, that in this case, the peak hours for Chick-fil-A coincide precisely with peak hours of traffic.
Okay, so my concern is, again, exiting towards that traffic light. I just can't understand how changing the sequencing of that light, or how would it change to make it better than it is now when you're adding, I don't know, was it 200 trips during peak hours? and at a rate of perhaps 8 instantaneous, 8 per 30 seconds coming out of that, food service line right into traffic. And then what about people going in and out of sunny days right next door as well?
Before Rob answers, I want to make sure everyone understands that when we talk about trips, that's actually one car. So one car coming to the site, arriving at it is a trip. That same car leaving the site is another trip. So while we hear these numbers of the number of trips, you actually divide that in 2 for the number of cars. So I mean, I just want to make sure everyone understands that, and otherwise I'll let Rob answer.
Yeah, so I think what's important is to understand that we wouldn't be adding 200 cars in a peak hour to that intersection. I'm just looking based on the anticipated distribution. The portion of the trips that are assigned through there is in the 40 vehicle per hour range. And again, and I understand the philosophy of the drop in the bucket. But this really is a small amount of new traffic to what's already present and processing through that intersection.
It's just that you're adding 8 potentially per 30 seconds. I don't know, when you have 8 people getting served at once, if it's during your peak hour and also the peak rush hour of people going westbound down the post road, how does the changing sequencing of the traffic light help alleviate that? What do you expect them to do when you're adding all those people at that rate? And if you're serving people that quickly, but they can't get out, doesn't it back up on the tail end then? I don't understand how that works. If they can't get out onto the post road, how does that work? I'm trying to figure out how that works when you have that many people trying to exit at once.
We actually have a fair number of cars that once they exit and receive their food, there's sufficient capacity in the reverse queue, so to speak, of queuing after they get their food and before they enter the roadway network. And so let's say, for instance, that under a very, very busy time period, the queue to leave and make that right out onto Post Road is blocked. Certainly people can continue down that drive aisle and go on to Elliott Place and make whatever decision they want to make in terms of the direction they want to head. So there are options for a driver in those conditions that we think are going to be very rare.
And how do we think the traffic I don't know how traffic signals would change to make it better. What would the traffic expert think that the DOT would do to alleviate things taking place on the post road?
Well, like I said, the benefit comes from just some adjustment in the timing. So, it's basically to achieve a better level of service or operation for the whole traffic signal. Sometimes you have to, and I'll use the term, rob from Peter to pay Paul. So you might be taking a little bit of time from one approach and giving it to another. But overall, you can experience, a reduction in the overall delay or the average delay for a driver in the intersection.
Are you suggesting then that the DOT, upon the request of the town, would make the green light longer on people on the post road and shorter on people on?
I'd have to get into the analyses, because I just don't recall offhand which phases were proposed to be extended and which reduced, which approaches. But this is a recommendation I would make to DOT whether our project happened or not, because it can make the operation better overall.
So making it longer green light on the post road.
It might be. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other members of the commission have questions? Attorney Nuff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll be happy to supply all the materials that we've used this evening to staff tomorrow morning. Obviously, there's a few questions the commission still has with regard to ITE standards and how our site will operate, and we're happy to respond fully at the next meeting. But that concludes the presentation. But I would hope that the commission, can understand and appreciate that a lot of thought and care has gone into the design of this project. I know that you still have some questions, and we're happy to answer those, but nonetheless, we have tried to anticipate every possible scenario in which, in terms of a traffic perspective and how the traffic will operate on our sites. As I mentioned, my client has devoted the entirety of the site to this use so as to ensure that there is no negative impact on the roadway system from cars queuing onto the roadway. So we'd be happy to answer any questions. I know that you're going to open up into the public shortly, and we're happy to respond to them as well.
Okay, so that concludes the applicant's initial presentation. Let's just talk logistics quickly, as it's 9 o'clock with a 10 o'clock curfew. Are there any attorneys present for any opposition? I think I know the answer. I want to know if there's any other, besides Attorney Green, any others. Good evening, Attorney Green.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
I understood you, oh, we have another. Okay. Are you able to go forward today, or are you, as it sounds like we're going to be going into another time anyways with the additional information provided. Are you planning on doing it today, or would you ask to the next time? What's your thought? For the record, Mr. Chairman, my name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport, the law offices of Green and Gross. I would ask for the commission and the applicant's indulgence in deferring my presentation to the continued hearing. With that request, I would offer that I will provide Attorney Nuff very quickly with a traffic report that we are working on and materials that we would be submitting into the record so that he has an opportunity to review them. I do have some comments that I would like to offer to the commission this evening in advance of my presentation so that we can have a sort of a complete consideration of the application at the next session. But for the moment, I would propose to defer to any members of the public who are here, if I may, if the chairman is willing to do that. Well, let's start. Attorney Nuff, do you consent to let Attorney Green provide his full, majority of his presentation the next hearing?
I'd like to at least, Joe and I know each other going back a long time, so we've done this dance on a number of occasions. So it's candidly, it's fairly standard operating procedure to say that we're not ready tonight, that we need to continue. What we want to do is make this process as efficient as possible. So while I'm not entirely happy, I would like Attorney Green to at least let us know when we can expect to receive his report, because what we want to do is to respond to the commission fully and to Attorney Green's reports at our next meeting as comprehensively as we possibly can. So if Attorney Green were to say he can provide us, his traffic analysis from his traffic expert, first of all, I'd like to know who that is tonight, perhaps early next week, then I think that's probably okay, because it'll allow us an opportunity to digest what he's claiming and then give you a comprehensive response. But if we're going to get the reports, in 11 days or 12 days, then, I may have a slightly different feeling. And while I have the floor, I also like an opportunity to understand who Attorney Green's clients are. As we know, the commission requires applicants to disclose who all the members are of the applicant LLC. And there's a good reason for that, so that commission members can determine whether they have any conflicts of interest with any those members. I would ask that Attorney Green do the exact same thing in this setting, so that the commission members have the benefit of that knowledge as well.
Thank you. Yes, I see Mr. Wendt raising his hand. We'll get Mr. Wendt, and then I think that's fair from what you're requesting from Attorney Green. Mr. Wendt?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Jim Wendt, just to try to put some clarity on what the timing of this is going to be. I am going to recommend and was going to recommend in any event that this matter be continued to the first meeting in September, which would be the 14th of September. We have other matters, other applications that we have statutory deadlines to begin hearings at our next meeting. And given that, what I'm going to suggest is that the applicant provide the follow-up traffic data that they expect to submit, and then we can share that, and then that would give time for Mr. Green's expert to present their, share their data so that everybody has all of the information going forward, so we're not getting new information at that continued hearing with the goal to be able to comprehensively complete that hearing on the 14th of September. So that would be my suggested timing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I think that makes sense because there have been some instances where Attorney Nuff, the applicant, said they would supplement with traffic report and some other information. So it makes sense that if we can get the remainder from the applicant, and your point is well taken that the Mr. Green and any expert that I'm not aware of besides, Attorney Green's expert, be provided to you well in advance of September 14th so that we can move forward expeditiously. Attorney Green?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I just suggest so that we can, to accomplish what I think is a good idea in an orderly process, perhaps the applicant could submit all of its data. Today's the 10th of August on my calendar, and perhaps the applicant can agree to submit everything that it plans to submit by August 20th, which is 10 days. And then I would be happy to submit everything that we're going to submit on or before August 30th, which is 10 days after that. That allows 2 weeks for the commission and the applicant to review those materials. And I think that also allows the public, fair access to all of the information.
I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but I don't want to turn this into a ping pong match of once we supply our data in response to the commission's questions, Attorney Green and his clients submit whatever they submit, and then we respond to that opens the door again for more opposition, and now we're into October. So if we're making a discrete schedule.
Go ahead, Attorney Nuff, sorry.
No. If we're making a discrete schedule that, we'll do what we can by August 20th. Attorney Green will supply his report responding to everything by August 30th. And then we literally get the last word prior to the hearing on September 14th. Then I think we're okay with that.
Commissioner Braun, I see you, don't worry. I mean, my thought is this. I mean, obviously the applicant in its reply gets the last word. If there is something that you are adding to the record that is different than what the application is, then that raises an issue. I mean, obviously you get the last word, but if you're adding something materially new to the record, then I think in that instance, I think this commission in the past has always allowed the public to review and potentially comment on it. Now, that happens infrequently to rarely, and really just follows no regular motion practice in court, or even evidentiary hearings as well. So I think what you said, Attorney Nuff, is fair, that you will be entitled to the last word, and if in the unlikely event you are adding something materially different than what's under your application, we will have to handle it at that time. Maybe it requires additional hearings or not, but we're going to. I think the idea that Mr. Wentz and Attorney Green and I am suggesting is let's get back on the regular route here. Submit what you need to for your application, your initial presentation. Attorney Green and anybody else will have the opportunity to respond to it, and you will obviously get the last word in the regular course.
Okay.
Attorney, excuse me.
But my request
Sorry,
for
sorry.
Attorney Green to identify his clients still stands.
No, of course. Why don't we get to that before I get to Commissioner Braun?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I've just been retained as of yesterday, and I did frankly speak with Attorney Nuff yesterday. I am waiting for written authorizations to disclose from two businesses, but one business that has authorized me to disclose is Fairfield Electric Supply at 711 Post Road, which is directly across the street. I made that known to Attorney Nuff yesterday, and I expect to have some other local businesses who have, I've been contacted by a number of businesses recently in the area who obviously share the commission's concerns with the potential traffic load and sort of related issues presented by this application. And I look forward to addressing the commission on September 14th.
Commissioner Braun?
Yes, I've been reviewing the code review minutes and the responses. Those are, just FYI, on page 473 of the 498-page master presentation, very thorough presentation. But I don't think most of the departments that sort of did this concept review, which we call a code review, I don't think they have the plans. It seemed like a lot of them, they didn't have the plans. And I'm wondering if some of the information that they were seeking we can get, like, for example, might have been TPZ wanted to know about increasing the elevation of this site by filling it with 1,000 cubic yards of fill, and what if any that would have.
Just because we've ended with the applicant's presentation, if there's issues, maybe we can address it with staff offline, or depending on what they are, we certainly have a second bite at the apple with the applicant's reply. Go over any other additional questions that we may have missed.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were only going to present the traffic expert and not like the the drainage expert or anything. So really related to drainage leaving the site, as well as whether they are planning on incorporating other green technology like porous pavement and things like that. I was hoping they would discuss some of that.
Well, okay, Attorney Nuff, at least we've kind of highlighted at least an area that we may be jumping into with your reply presentation, if that's okay.
The rebuttal.
Sure. I mean, candidly, we were prepared to talk about that this evening. We knew that traffic was going to be sort of the front and center issue. Matt Bruton would certainly be happy to discuss drainage. I understand, Mr. Chairman, you probably want to keep on moving to the public, but we'd be happy at the next opportunity on the 14th to run through the whole drainage issue. And I think the commission will be pleased with what you hear, because Laura Pooley asked us to take an extremely conservative view on drainage as well, assuming that as she asked us to assume that the site was entirely pervious through the 1 through 25-year storms, so we use that as a basis for stormwater design. So that's really good news for us to tell, but we're trying not to take the focus away from what we knew you would be talking about. So we'd be happy for Matt to address that more specifically at the next meeting. And if any other commission members has any specific questions they want us to address next time, perhaps they could email Jim and he can funnel those to us, and we'd be happy to respond in a very efficient manner.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think, considering where we are, I think it might be better to move on to public hearing. But I think we've, I take it what we just discussed though, August 20th, August 30th, those dates are okay, Attorney Nuff?
Sure, and then we'll respond as quickly as we can after the 30th, but before the 14th.
Attorney Green, one of the things you had said is you had some other, letting the public talk, and I think is wise to let them go first. Do you have comments though now that are succinct enough to give Attorney Nuff a heads up as not knowing what you're going to say, how do you, you mentioned.
I think I'm directing that. I think I will defer my comments. I really don't have anything to add at the moment.
No, that's fair, because I think it's certainly ideal for a presenter to speak once, essentially, if possible. Certainly we would never prevent it, but certainly more ideal for talking once, essentially.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Attorney Green. Thank you, Attorney Nuff. So we'll turn to members of the public. Now it's time for, as I said, public comment for members of the public to speak in support or opposition to the application. We will call you as you've signed up in the chat. I have not looked at the chat. Ms. Harrigan may be the one calling you. If you can please just identify yourself by name, which street that you live on, and we just ask you to keep your comments relevant to the application, as succinct as possible. As we discussed, we will be this will be continued to September 14th. You, of course, are able to speak now. You are able to speak on September 14th. Or, of course, we accept emails from members of the public, which are distributed to the commissioners. We read them as they come in. We saw a bunch come in over the weekend, at least distributed to us last week and today. So you may, of course, submit your emails, your comments via email. We would just ask it be less ideal for a person to talk both today and on September 14th. Certainly, we would not prevent it, but it would certainly be somewhat less ideal. But having said that, we'll jump into public comments. And who do we have up first?
So we have Daniel Mann, followed by Mario Loya, although I think he might want to speak at the next meeting. And then the third person we have is Karen Walkerman. So the first person again is Daniel Mann.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Daniel Mann. Thank you to the board for allowing me to speak today. I represent the neighboring property, 1 Elliott Place, which is across the street from Elliott Place in this location. And I would like to speak about a few just concerns that we have concerning this redevelopment. We do welcome the redevelopment in this commercial neighborhood, but we just want to make sure that the plans here are approved in a way that ensures sensible traffic, public health and safety, and aesthetic design. We want to improve this area, not deteriorate it. We do think Chick-fil-A is a great organization. And so, if they do end up coming here, we think they could add a lot of value to the neighborhood and to the community. The concerns I would like to bring up are fourfold. The first is regarding trash and dumpsters on site. As the applicant demonstrated, they do have dumpsters located here. I would like to get some more clarifications on garbage cans. With a fast food restaurant, there is a lot of garbage created, and it doesn't appear that in their plans they submitted any garbage cans in the parking areas. From a neighbor perspective, we get a ton of trash from the Marshall Shopping Center that neighbor refuses to participate and clean up for their clients. And so we want to make sure that our property, which we maintain very aggressively for cleaning purposes, continues to get the same kind of treatment that we try to provide to it, and that this neighbor does not contribute to the trash problem that we already get. Additionally, our property, we have put in multiple complaints with the local police. We get people dumping trash all the time on our property. So again, would like to understand how they are planning to do their trash and dumpster, removal a little bit more clearly. And I would like to see some trash cans added to the site. Next on my list is signage. In the packet that they provided, I know that the applicant did not submit a full signage plan here. They did include renderings which show the on-building signage on all 4 sides of the building. I'm not an expert in the signage rules for this zone, but I don't know if that is specifically allowed. I would like to note that our building is a professional office building filled with financial advisors, many prominent local attorneys, and we would like to just make sure that, you know, we don't have any unnecessary and unaesthetic signage, you know, shining brightly into our windows. Again, we have no problem with the Chick-fil-A logo or signage, but we just want to make sure that when they do submit a signage plan, it is in accordance with the proper code and does not deteriorate the area from that perspective. Next on my list is further development on the site. As the applicant already acknowledged, they do have ability to build more space on the site. We've all been talking a lot about traffic control and the number of vehicles here. So is the applicant going to commit to not constructing additional square footage of fast food space or other restaurant space that will further congest this area? It would just be good to know if that's something that's in their plans in the future or not, and to know what the board thinks about that on those further approvals. The last thing I have here, which is just kind of the same point that everyone else has been bringing up, or that the board has eloquently brought up, is the left-hand turn off of Elliott Place onto Post Road. That is really the only logical and realistic way to go. I believe that's northeast onto Post Road, and that is a concern. Chick-fil-A, for better or worse, is an excellent food establishment that has a great product, and I think this is going to be a very successful location, and that's great for them. However, our property at 1 Elliott Place is the property that will get mostly affected by that traffic congestion, and we do have a concern that has been expressed to me by a number of our tenants about how much congestion will be on Elliott Place and how that is going to affect their businesses and their clients from getting to them. Those are my 4 points. I would, I don't know if the applicant's going to respond today or if the board will respond, but that is what I have for you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mann. Yes, the applicant has the opportunity to respond at its in its reply presentation. So, should the applicant?
Mr. Chair, we'd be happy to respond tonight once we get through all the public. I mean, we're happy to sort of clear away some of the underbrush if there's an opportunity this evening.
Then that's a fair point. So we'll move forward to see if that opportunity exists in the half hour we have left.
The next speaker is Mario Loya, but I think he expressed that he might want to speak at the next meeting. So if he could just confirm that verbally, that would be great.
I don't see him in the participant list any longer.
Okay.
Yeah, we may need to take his silence as he left, or silence as he'll talk next time.
Okay, then the next person is Karen Walkerman. Oh, we can't hear you.
You're on mute, Ms. Walkerman.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Karen Wackerman, Shoreham Village Drive, and I'm also speaking as I'm a member of the representative town meeting, and I represent the district that this is in, which is also where I live. My constituents are very worried about the traffic, and honestly, this traffic report reinforced my concerns as well. I am grateful to Commissioner Noonan for asking the questions about perhaps a more realistic estimate of how many customers will be there. I think the customers coming from the west will have to turn left into Elliott Place probably, or turn left into North Benson and then go around to enter, because I think you said the entrance on Post Road can only come from the westbound traffic and right turn into it. So you have them potentially crossing Post Road there, and then potentially crossing Post Road again, coming out of Elliott Place to go east. And so I know there was a discussion of the queuing, but I think that all of those cars crossing the road like that are just a recipe for disaster. We also had a lot of trouble with the North Benson traffic light for a long time, a lot of backed up traffic, and only recently was that fixed. So now traffic flows much better, and this would be very disappointing to have this cause a problem. This is so close to the traffic circle, which is already a mess, and I'm grateful to Mr. Hurley and others that they are doing a study, and hopefully in a few years maybe that'll be fixed. But that's a mess and a potential accident site, and this is just going to be so much traffic. I think it would be terrible for the neighborhood, and I ask the commission to please not approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Harrigan?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't have anybody else who has indicated they'd like to speak in public in the chat. If we want to just put out one more call to members of the public.
Sure. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak this evening? Going once, twice. So, Attorney Nuff, we have some time. You offered to at least potentially respond quickly. I think I'm happy to let you do so since we have a little extra time, or you can save it all for your rebuttal, which obviously talking tonight will not affect your rebuttal in the slightest later.
No, understood. I mean, we might as well take, probably 3 or 4 minutes just to tie up some loose ends. So Clint's going to discuss the trash and dumpsters in a moment, but in terms of Daniel Mann's concern regarding signage, the renderings are not representative of what the signage are going to be. The signage will be fully compliant with your regulations. Obviously, those renderings are specific to what the building will look like, but it was not representative of what the signage will be. In terms of further development, yes, if Chick-fil-A is approved and constructed, we will commit to no further development. If, however, for some reason the Chick-fil-A is not approved, then obviously, we can't make any representations on the future of the property. It could be, any number of things, whatever the market would accommodate. So his last comment is with regard to traffic, and Ms. Rackerman's comments with regard to traffic, we'll address those next time. So I would ask that Clint respond about the trash and dumpster and garbage can issue.
Thanks, John. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is Clint Mattson again. So our trash plan is we do have 2 dumpsters on site that get picked up almost every single day. As I had mentioned earlier in our presentation, that we take very good pride on our property and the way that our building and site looks. We have team members that go out randomly throughout the entire day to make sure our entire parking lot is cleaned up and no trash is around our site at all. One of the things that we want to make sure we have is to have a good experience for all of our guests. That includes people around us in the neighboring properties. We do have trash cans around our building and on our patio. We do not have trash cans in the parking lot due to that reason. Most of our guests will come in, get their food, throw the garbage away, and then go to their cars and leave the site. However, we can look at putting different or more trash cans around the site if needed, but there are several ones around the building.
Thanks, Clint. I think the only other issue that's outstanding that we're aware of that we've already haven't represented that we'll deal with next time is the drainage issue. And it's 9:35. If the commission has a little more patience, Matt would certainly take you through the drainage plan. If you'd rather save that scintillating discussion until September, we can do that as well.
Commissioner Braun, I'll leave this to your preference. you would like, if you have the capacity tonight or on the 14th, your call.
It doesn't matter to me. I would just like to hear about it. The thing about whether the elevation, what the fill is, what the reason is, and what the impact on the abutting property could be of elevating it. It was questions in the code review, so I don't care when he answers it. This time or next time is okay.
Okay. Well, my preference would be next time, if that's okay.
Sure, that's fine with me.
Commissioner Francis.
When
Can you take
he
down
was
the
talking,
sharing?
excuse me?
I'm sorry, whoever's screen sharing, if you can please take that down.
When he was
Go ahead,
talking
Commissioner Francis.
drainage, I think he said the whole parking lot is going to be paved and pervious. Is that right?
I see a shake of the head of yes.
I was kind of surprised that it's not impervious.
You're on
We can't
mute.
hear you.
Commissioner Matt Bruton for the record. Let me clarify. It is impervious, so it's concrete or asphalt, not pervious that would allow water to trickle through and recharge into the groundwater. But it's pretty standard for a commercial restaurant application with a lot of foot traffic and vehicle traffic to maintain a solid base around the facility to make sure it's safe and can hold up to the level of service that we're expecting here.
Thank you.
I thought the new environmentally correct thing to do was pervious. But it does.
Matt Bruton for the record.
Yeah.
Yes, so we are providing aspects of the stormwater management system that do allow the groundwater, the water that falls on the site in the form of rain, that falls on the building, the parking lot, and the grassed areas to infiltrate back into the ground. That's part of the rain garden system that we do have on the property and the proposed underground detention system. So we are proposing to recharge groundwater, but we're proposing to do it by cleaning it first through the proposed stormwater management system. So it's a bit of it's being handled, but in a little bit different way than pervious pavement.
Is a lot of it being collected right in the parking lot?
It's being collected two different ways, by sheet flow to catch basins that fall within the parking lot, but also by sheet flow and no curbs, and it would get sheet flowed into landscaped areas, and then landscaped areas then get directed to pipe system. So it's being handled two different ways on the site to collect the water appropriately depending on which area of the site you're talking about.
And you said you had a rain garden in the back?
Actually, it's within the parking lot. Two of those islands that I mentioned before that you noticed that there were no trees in, two of those are rain gardens. And there's a little bit of a rain garden swale on the western boundary of the site as well, adjacent to the food canopy.
All right.
Mr. Francis, I would just point out that Laura Pooley is a very vigilant protector of the environment, to her credit. And she, as I mentioned earlier, she actually required us, or I will say asked politely, that we assume that the site was entirely pervious through the 1 through 25-year storms, which is frankly an unusual ask, but one that we were happy to comply with. So I think she was very happy with how the stormwater system ended up. And I think in your packet is an email from her indicating that she's pleased with the stormwater design. So it wasn't necessarily an easy solution for BL, Matt, and his colleagues to solve, but they were able to do so and not inconsiderable expense.
Thank you. So with that, we'll conclude tonight, leave this hearing open. Thank you to the applicants and to the members of the public that spoke. Thank you to my commissioners for trusting me this evening. We'll bring this meeting to a close. Leave this hearing open as we discussed.
Thank you,
Nice
Mr.
work,
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
members.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Night. Jim on the line, thank you very much.